Draft day is here. Welcome to Sports4CLE's Draft Night Special, along with Lance Reisland from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. I'm Dave Bacon. Browns set to make a couple of picks today. Reportedly, we'll see if they trade out of it, 6-24. But we also have a guy from Cleveland who is expected to go top 5 as well. Glenville High School's Arvell Reese expected to be one of the top picks in this year's draft, and he will be the 4th Tarbloodter to be selected in the first round of the NFL draft under Ted Ginn Sr. Dante Whitner was the first one, went at 8 overall to the Bills in 2006. Ted Ginn Jr., Ted's son, went to the Dolphins at 9 in 2007. Marshawn Lattimore, heck of a one, at 11th overall, 2017 to the Saints. Arvell Reese expected to be a top 5 pick. Let's welcome in Ted Ginn Sr., who is in the green room with Arvell Reese. Teddy, I appreciate you joining us. Lance Reisland and Dave Bacon. Tell us a little bit about the feeling. You're there with one of your guys about to be a first-round pick.
I can't hear you. It's really breaking up. I can't understand that.
Tell us about your feelings getting to see one of your guys going number 1 overall, Ted.
Hello?
All right, we're obviously having some trouble. Ted is in the green room.
Loud in the green room right now.
Yeah, very loud. Can you hear us?
Yeah.
You got us?
It's breaking up. I can't hear or understand anything.
All right. Well,
Okay.
can you hear us, Ted?
I hear a little bit now.
What's it like? Tell us about having a guy go in the first round.
Oh, it's huge when you can go in the first round. It's just amazing, man. Just, God is good.
Tell us how proud you are of Arvell and his journey there.
Huh?
Arvell's journey to the first round. How proud are you of him?
Hello?
Can you...
Hello?
All right, Ted is obviously celebrating with Arvell, which is a good thing.
I can hear you now a little bit.
Tell us about Arvell's journey to being a first-round pick.
He was captain, 8-time Pro Bowler, defensive player of the year. DJ
Yeah, we can hear the background.
All right.
I can't hardly hear you all, though.
All right, we'll try to check back in with you later, Ted. Appreciate it. All right, Ted Ginn from the green room. So Arvell's a kid that kind of transferred back in to Glenville, and Ted had him get his academics in order, ended up going to Ohio State and being really good academically in addition to being a good football player.
Well, yeah, he seems like a great kid. He is tremendously talented. Talk about a guy who plays linebacker. He's also been very, very good on the edge. You see him stand up tackles. He's kind of, that term unicorn that people use. This is a kid that can really do it all. He's a guy that after Mendoza, you're talking 2 through 6. He's on my game changers list, right? So I had 6 guys. Arvell Reese is one of those guys that, you can put him anywhere you need to make plays. He can play on the edge. He can play in space. He can cover. He can cover multiple positions. This is a kid, obviously coming out of Glenville, Ohio State. He's been well schooled. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes too. He is a super talented kid with a bright future.
All right, so when you look at the Browns 6, where do you expect him to go? You got wide receiver, you got tackle, you got maybe one of those defensive guys slips?
Well, you're going to see, here's the thing with the Browns is obviously we know receiver, we know tackle is a very big position. But I'm not sure if any of those guys have value at 6, right? So if Caleb Downs or if Jeremiah Love is there, I'm not too mad if they make that pick. If they go with a lineman, I would think Fano would be the pick because he can play that left tackle. I think Monroe Freeling might be there at 24 if you decide to wait. And then if you go receiver, do you go with the Ohio State kid, Carnell Tate? Do you go Mekhi Lemon, who's my favorite out of USC, or Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State? Jordan's a kid who's tremendously talented. He's had injury issues, or he would be number 1 on my board. So it's very interesting. Obviously, we know the need at receiver. We know the need at tackle, but they need depth at linebacker. They need depth at safety, interior line. That first pick's interesting. For me, I'm going after the best player. Who's the best player on the board? Go get him.
All right, let's take a look at the roster as it's constructed now. We'll start wide receivers and tight ends that are currently on the roster, and we know the names: Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, Isaiah Bond, Gage Larvadan. You got Wallace, who's come in, had some familiarity with Todd Monkin, Jamari Thrash, and Malachi Corley. You see the tight ends. We'll talk about them a little bit later. That wide receiving room needs a couple of guys, not just one. You need an elite guy at the top to kind of set things down, and you probably need another guy in the middle that's pretty good too.
Well, the interesting first thing I will say is that I thought Ced Tillman and I thought Isaiah Bond looked physically fit at practice earlier this week. So those guys have had great offseasons getting their bodies ready to go. Whatever Browns decide to do at receiver, it's going to be interesting. So if they take an inside guy, it tells you what they think of Isaiah Bond, that they need more help there. If they go with an outside guy, a Carnell Tate, a Malachi Fields, a Brazil kid out of Tennessee, then it tells you that they need more help on the outside. But they need to improve this room, and they got to get that number one guy. What that number one guy does is it makes Fano better. It makes Jerry Jeudy a really good number two. It makes the running game going because you have to play nickel. So yeah, they got to go out and they got to get that guy. It depends on inside or outside, more of a slot or more of an outside boundary guy.
When you think of Todd Monkin, when I think of Todd Monkin, I think of a guy that looks to beat you with matchups. I don't see any of those wide receivers that are matchup problems right now.
Yeah, and that's the problem. So when you talk about a system-based offense as compared to an offense that is matchup-based, it's really about scoring points. It's about being positionless. We got to find people that can win matchups, whether it's against linebackers, against corners, against safeties. It might be in the run game. So that's kind of where they're at. They have to figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to do it and what's important. And we're going to know right away. We're going to know right away if they trade back. Again, unfortunately, the best guy that I think for them is a defensive guy. I have 6 guys that I think are game changers. 5 of them are in defense, and Jeremiah Love. So we'll see what happens. I think Jeremiah Love, because of what you said, I think he's the matchup guy that could be really good in this offense.
And again, I say they don't have a matchup. I get it. Fannin can be a matchup problem. Even Dylan Sampson, if you use him right, can be a matchup problem. They don't have a wide receiver that threatens a defense.
Well, yeah, and if you think about what they need, so Jerry Jeudy's been forced into this number one category, and what it does is it gets the best corner, it gets rotation to him. It also, so he's had trouble getting off that number one corner. Now you get a number one receiver. Now Jerry Jeudy becomes a very good number 2 receiver. Now Harold Fannin has all the matchups against linebackers and safeties. Well, how do you adjust to that? You go nickel. Well, that makes Judkins more, better in the run game because you're blocking 6 and 5 and 6 and not 7 and 8. So having that number one receiver makes the rest of this cast much better.
All right, let's take a look. We looked at the wide receivers. Here's a look at the offensive line as it currently stands on the roster, and there needs to be some additions. Titus Howard, love him. DeJuan Jones hasn't been able to stay healthy. KT Levinston struggled a little bit. Zion Johnson they brought in. They brought in Elton Jenkins. Whippler's been banged up. Zinter hasn't been able to do what they wanted him to do. They get Jenkins back. I get it. They need offensive linemen. The thing that concerns me, when you talk about offensive linemen and the first thing you say is he's really versatile, well, that tells me middle of the first round, end of the first round, not 6 overall.
Well, it depends for me. Like a guy like, I will say this, like a guy like Spencer Fano. Spencer Fano, that versatility is not lacking, and I understand what you're saying. So when I think of Spencer Fano, it's a universal talent he has. I think because of his light feet, he can play that left tackle. When people say, Andrew Berry said tackle's a tackle, what he means by that is kids with light feet. And you're not heavy. That's why I don't think Maui Noah's the pick, because I think he's going to move inside. But I think with the addition of Elton Jenkins, I think they can go out and take the best offensive lineman with the idea if he's not ready, you can go inside. So that maybe they go with Iheanacho out of Arizona State later, or Freeling at 24 if he slides, or maybe they trade back down to if they think Freeling's going to slide. Freeling's probably, Freeling and Iheanacho besides Fano probably have the highest upside. If they go 6 with linemen, I'd be shocked if it's not Spencer Fano.
All right, so let's take a look at the history of drafting offensive linemen in the first round. So these are the Browns' offensive linemen that have been drafted in the first round, not only tackles, throughout their history. And it's not a great list. You had Jedrick Wills, we know how that went. He was 10th overall pick in 2020. Cameron Irving struggled here. Alex Mack was pretty good. Joe Thomas, Hall of Famer. So you went 3 overall. He was really good. There's not a Joe Thomas in this draft. Jeff Fain was okay. Steve Everett, a lot of centers that they drafted high. And I'm not. I was alive in '73, but I don't know much about Pete Adams. The other guys are just okay. The problem is when you draft linemen in the first round, particularly in the top 10, you're expecting them to be Joe Thomas or at least, Alex Mack.
And I think I think if you're going to take a guy at 6, that guy better be a foundational piece, like you're saying with Joe Thomas. And right now, that's not something that is in this draft. Now, there's guys with high upside. So Spencer Fano is the safest pick. He's going to give you a B in teacher terms, right? But Monroe Freeling and Max Iannaccio out of Arizona State, those are guys that you're not sure how good they're going to be, so you're betting on their potential, but their ceiling is really, really high, especially the Iannaccio kid. The more I watch him, the more I think he can be a special talent because he's not only got light feet, but he's 330 pounds plus.
All right, so let's do the same exercise with wide receivers that have been taken in the first round historically, and this isn't even scary.
This is not a elite group.
This is why
here.
the offense has struggled for the Cleveland Browns. So Corey Coleman, that was not good. Braylon Edwards had a couple of good years. Alexander. Now, Eric Metcalf is listed as wide receiver running back. He had some productive years. Willis Adams, Steve Holden. Paul Warfield was pretty good, and then you traded him to the Dolphins. Gary Collins was really good. He had a big game when they won the World Championship, as it was called, in '64.
Yeah, so what's ended up happening with it, over the last couple years, the Deshaun Watson trade has not allowed them to go out and get elite talent. So if they, unfortunately this year with the receivers, besides those top 3 and even those top 3, I'm not sure those guys aren't Jamar Chase, in my opinion, right now. They're really good, but in this draft, you have a lot of guys that can be Bs. There's not a big difference between the top 3 and the second tier. There's 10 to 15 receivers that are pretty good in this draft.
And I understand that, and I get that. The thing that concerns me is we've taken wide receivers in the 3rd round, and we've tried the fast guy, Anthony Schwartz, didn't do it. We tried the possession guy, David Bell, didn't do it. We tried the big guy, Cedric Tillman, jury's still out because he can't stay on the field.
Yeah, and it's, obviously that when you go past the first round, it's a crapshoot. And even in the first round with certain positions it did. But at receiver, for example, I look at a guy like Mekhi Lemon. Now, if you're talking about an outside receiver, I think Carnell Tate's the guy. But if you're talking about a playmaker, and we talk about Todd Monkin's matchup kind of players over plays offense, Mekhi Lemon fits the bill because he can play inside or outside. He's the best in the draft for me. Him and Omar Cooper. Casey Concepcion, run after catch guys. And that's really, you and I have talked about it for a number of years. The Browns have to find guys that can run after catch, guys that can make plays for the quarterback.
So the first pick was in. It is Francisco Mendoza. And after that is where it gets a little dicey.
Yeah, Mendoza's the guy. And it's funny, Mendoza, this is a slam dunk, but it's not a slam dunk for me in terms of like Andrew Luck or John Elway, showing my age there. But for me, this is a really good quarterback. But when you go back to that when they played Ohio State, he's still got a learning curve there, and he's still going to have to make a ton of plays. Now, the thing that he does really well, and the reason Tom Brady likes him, is because he loves the game. There's a passion there he has, so I think that's important at that position. That's what he does.
And again, you're taking a look at some of his tape. Won a national championship. Again, a surprise somewhat. When you look at last year, Mendoza, now I will give Tim Bielek credit, who's scheduled to join us later. He did say he thought Mendoza could be the top quarterback last year after the draft.
Yeah, I work a lot with Tim, and I got to give Tim his kudos there. He always gives me credit for it. He was all over Fernando Mendoza. Now, the thing about Fernando Mendoza, I go with the Bill Parcells, right? 30 starts, 23 wins, 3-year starter, all conference. But the thing that I really think is important is, can you get to the second, third progressions? And in that offense in Indiana, he didn't have to do that a lot. Doesn't mean he can't, right? It's one of those things. It's not a he can't. He's a very intelligent kid. He just didn't have to do it a lot. So that'll be his learning curve, because in the NFL, those guys get paid a lot of money to figure it out. They're going to try to take away that first read from him, make him get to the second, third progressions.
So let's do an exercise. If Caleb Downs is there at 6 when the Browns draft, and now the Jets are on the clock, so we still have 5 picks to get there. How serious do you think Andrew Berry is considering Caleb Downs? And my thing is if I'm trading out of that, you got to make me, and I understand the thought that there's not a lot of people that want to trade up, but in order for me to trade back from a guy that I think is going to be a really good pro, you got to give me something.
Well, for me, Caleb Downs is the number one player in the draft. I have him, then Jeremiah Love. And the thing about Caleb Downs is that he impacts. And when you stack talent, there's a bunch of things that happen when you stack talent. If you get guys who can change the field, whether they're in their offense or defense, you got to go get them. Then you talk about Delpit, and I always think about the Eagles and stacking talent, because eventually you're going to have to pay somebody you don't want to pay. A guy is going to get hurt. A guy is going to move on. And if you keep stacking talent, not filling holes, then the next guy comes in. And that's kind of what's happened with Philadelphia. So something happens with Delpit. You can move him down in the box. He becomes that guy. He can also play the free safety. He can also play the nickel linebacker. This is an extremely talented guy. And I know he doesn't score touchdowns, but what he does is he creates short fields, and he's just going to make a big play when the big play is needed. He's the best guy I've watched on film this year. Hearing him and Jeremiah Love are the best two players this year that I watched.
So, and when you hear the traditional wisdom this year is, well, teams might have to take less trading back. I'm not doing that. I stay and pick.
Well, I've never been a believer in we're going to it's like the Myles Garrett trade, right? So I'm not getting rid of my best player, and I'm not trading out to not take a great player. I don't want, if you can get an A+, take the A+. Don't take the B+, or don't take 2 B+. The Browns have to get elite talent at a lot of positions, especially on offense. But if it's not there, well, maybe then you have trade value. The stacking talent is a real thing. That's what the Browns haven't done. They've done over the last couple of years where they're going to fill in holes. I don't think you do that with the draft.
When you think about wide receivers, what is something that you think separates them and allows them to be successful in the NFL?
Well, I think, obviously it's size, right? And, I'm going to use David Bell as an example. There's size and then ability. You either have to have great individual, like short area burst, or you have to have the ability to run away. And if I look at David Bell, that's the one thing he couldn't do. He didn't have the ability to separate. He didn't have that burst, and he didn't have that elite speed. So you got to be big enough to get off press, right? You got to be fast enough to run away from man. And I always break it down 3 ways, Dave. You got, can I get off the line of scrimmage? Do I understand what I'm seeing in the release? At the catch point, 50-50 balls in the red zone. And then for me, which is most important, everybody's different, is run after catch. Can I make my quarterback's life easier?
You've just described what I thought was really good about Mekhi Lemon, except the fact that he's 5'11". But I'll be honest with you, when they started the draft process, I saw him play a number of games. I thought he was 6'2", 6'3". I think he just plays bigger.
Yeah, he plays longer. And, obviously what happened, and you and I talked about, he's a guy that for some reason didn't have good interviews, right?
Yeah.
And that hurt him.
Yeah, without question. So you see the number if you want to call in. We will take live phone calls today, 330-963-7763, 330-963-7763. The Jets have made the second pick, and it is David Bailey.
Yeah, hey, David Bailey, number 3 on the list. So David Bailey is a guy, this is a prototypical SEC defensive end. This is a guy who's long. This is a guy who's strong, explosive off the edge. Again, these defensive guys this year, Bailey, Reese, Sonny Styles, can play lots of different positions, right? This guy can drop. This is an elite athlete. Like I said, he's the 3rd guy on the board. I wasn't going to be shocked if it was Reese. I was not going to be shocked if it was Sonny Styles. David Bailey, when you watch him on film, he's an old school guy, doesn't wear any wristbands. He's all business, super athletic, really good player. Not shocked at all that he went 2.
No, and more of a traditional edge rusher, a lot of sacks, a lot of production.
Yeah, and he's a guy, if you think about, once again, I'm not comparing him play-wise, but that LT body shape, right? He's a guy who can play off the edge in an odd front. He can even play the 9 technique and handle that tight end. He's super, super long, plays really long. He's at his best when he's in a 2-point stance on that edge and go get the ball.
All right, so we talked about some of the qualities you look for in a wide receiver. Let's turn it into qualities you got to have in a tackle.
Well, it starts without question your feet, right? So obviously in the NFL you have to have size. And you go down there, you see all these guys, how big they are. It's always impressive to me. But what a guy really has to have, he has to have light feet. So when you think about the word lumbering, a guy can't lumber. So when I think about Francis Manoa, he's a guard for me because he's heavy. He looks heavy. You have to have these guys that, they're so light on their feet they look like tight ends. So it starts there. Then they got to be able to block with individual hands. They can't have the hands here. They got to use individual hands. They got to have a nasty streak. They got to have the able to finish in the run game. They got to have an understanding of fronts and things they're seeing. But it really, all the things that can be taught, it really comes down to, are you the correct size? but can you move your feet? Playing offensive line is being able to move, get to the second level, and especially that left tackle, kicking back and pass protecting those big defensive ends.
You know, the thing that you mentioned is kind of the nasty streak. That's the main thing. You want a guy that likes to compete and doesn't like who's lining up across from him.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily mean you have to knock that guy down. You know, the Browns have been very spoiled with like Batonio and Teller just knocking everybody down. It's that 1-2. Some guys, you know, they're not going to knock you down, and they don't have that ability, but they want to knock you down. And if you understand where the ball carrier is going to be, and you can get your backside between the ball carrier and the defender, that's understanding, right? That's understanding where the ball is going to be. So if you just need to be smart, right? Understand where you need to be, where your body needs to be. That's what the guys they've brought in are really good at that. And that nasty streak just means that there's that passion, the desire to play. I've been asked 1,000 times, why would Joel Batonio want to come back? He has a passion to play football, and I think that's really important when you're evaluating offensive linemen. That nasty streak doesn't mean you knock them down, like I said. It just means that you love playing.
So we've talked a little bit about Caleb Downs. Let's talk a little bit about Sonny Styles. If he somehow ends up there at 6 when the Browns are drafting, what's the thought process for Andrew Berry?
Once again, you know, for me, you know, you and I have talked. I am all about get best players, and Sonny Styles is one of those guys. Now, you're talking about a combine guy. This guy might have had the best combine ever, and he's a former free safety, moved down to linebacker, 6'5". He's going to be 250 pounds. Again, he can cover the slot, the tight ends. He can play the Mike backer, the will. He can play the half safety. I mean, this is really a unicorn. These Ohio State, him and Reese are really unique in what they can do. Obviously, with Downs, that was a really good defense. But this is a guy, if he's there, I think you absolutely have to think about it because he can do so much. And again, it's not about filling a hole. I know you need a tackle. You need great players. This is a great player. Sonny Styles is a great player.
Yeah, and again, football family. Lorenzo was his dad. He also has a brother. But I remember Sonny Styles as a safety in high school when he was recruited by everybody.
I mean, you want to see a highlight tape, go watch his basketball highlight tape.
Yeah.
It's one of the most impressive things you can watch. Just athletic all over the field. Again, and move down to that linebacker spot. And what's really good about that is that playing that safety spot gives him such a knowledge of the front seven. Because as a safety, you have to know what those linebackers are doing. So he has a great idea what the fronts are, what the coverages are, what safeties are doing. That helps a linebacker knowing where your help is.
All right, you see the number? If you want to give us a call, 330-963-7763. We will take live calls as first round. We're approaching pick 3 the Cardinals will make. That'll be interesting to see. There was some thought they may try to trade out of that.
Could be very interesting. Cardinals, you know, obviously they're in a much different situation than the Browns. The Browns, you know, are closer than people think. It's the offense. This defense is good. Arizona Cardinals, you know, if I'm them, I'm whoever's number 1 on my board. If it wasn't Mendoza or Bailey, that's who I'm taking because they're a team that is really poor at a lot of positions on both sides of the ball. So right here, this could be if you're a Downs fan like I am, this would be where I think Downs can go because if they have him the number 1 player on the board. You go get him, he'll anchor your defense for 10 years.
Yep, could also be the running back because you need a lot of help offensively.
And, you know, and Jeremiah Love is a running back. People say, well, they're not going to block for him, but he's so unique in what he does. If you think about Marshall Faulk, if you think about Eric Metcalf, these guys that can play both, that'll help him because he won't have great running lanes with this offensive line, but you can do different things with him to create space and let him work.
You mentioned Love, and what are your thoughts on him?
Obviously, he's been my number 2, and you know people have said, well, the Browns need offense. Well, if you need offense, I'm going Caleb Downs, but if you want it to be offense, it's Jeremiah Love. And the idea that you need a receiver, that's true too. And I'm not going away from that. But what I will tell you is that in this new matchup offense that the Browns are running, Monkin will find ways to create matchups. And if you think about it as a high school coach, and I know there's lots of high school coaches watching, you have 4 really good guys on offense, you figure out ways to get them the ball. They're kind of positionless. So I don't think of him as a running back. I think of him as a positionless weapon. You're right. Arizona can go get him because he's that talented. What do you think the separating thing is with him? Why do you like him so much? Well, first of all, it's his ability to play multiple spots. So he can run traditional tailback stuff. He can also motion out of the backfield if you like matchups. He can run the full route tree from the slot. You can move him outside at receiver and have him run some routes there. He's just a really talented guy as he just goes off the board. For that reason, he can do so much.
So the Cardinals do take Jeremiah Love with the 3rd pick.
He's so, you know, Dave, when you watch him on film, the first thing that stands out, the reason I thought he'd be a great pick for the Browns, is that every time he touches it, he can score. And if you go back to Monkin's, one of his first press conferences, they said, what's your scheme? What are you going to do? He said, I'm going to score more points than the other team. That tells me I don't care what we run. We have to get it to our best players. Jeremiah Love in this draft was by far the best offensive player.
Yeah, and we're going to take a look at some video of him.
Yeah, you can see here against Pittsburgh. So once again, once he's got great contact balance, once he gets into the secondary, he is gone. He's a sub 4.4 guy. He's also a guy you can see he's a lot tougher. But when you talk about shelf life as a running back, you're talking between those tackles. You got to avoid those car wrecks as much as possible. If you think about like Derrick Henry, then you're going to see him right here on a rail route. Runs a rail route, does a great job catching it with one hand. Again, he can run the full route tree. From inside, from outside. But if there's a difference between what Jeremiah Love does and what all the other backs in this draft, and really what all other weapons do, is that he can get a touchdown or score a touchdown from anywhere on the field. That's what offenses are looking for. If you look at the Browns, every single week they have to manufacture 10 and 12 play drives to score points. It's too hard to do in the NFL without a mistake. Again, I think Arizona got the best offensive player in the draft. Now for the Browns, one of those guys will probably be on the board. We'll see what happens. For me, I didn't have Mendoza in my top 6. So there's a guy that I would take regardless of position, but Jeremiah Love is the best offensive player in this draft.
So you look at it, Reese, Downs, Tate,
and Ruben Bain.
Ruben
Bain.
Well, you also have Sonny Styles.
And Sonny Styles,
You're going to have an elite guy sitting there.
Yeah, and you're going to have, and for me, even Mekhi Lemon, I put him in, if you look at Mekhi Lemon before the interview process, right, and that interview process is real because these guys are pros. If you look at what he did leading up to that, like you said, Washington, he was outstanding this year. And he was every bit as good as everybody. I just think he's an outstanding player. You hope that was immaturity, not character.
Right. And you're speaking of the Combine, there was a couple of interviews that were just bizarre. And there were interviews with teams that came out as it was kind of bizarre. I've seen him since say, just learn from it and move on, which is exactly what you want to hear.
Yeah, it was interesting because I saw him get interviewed yesterday and he said, I made a mistake. And it was good to hear that he wasn't like, I didn't do anything wrong, because then there's a character issue. Who's ever advising these young people, you got to remember, these organizations are, especially in the first round, they're spending millions of dollars on you. So they expect you to be a good person all the time, do the right thing on the field, off the field, taking care of your body. So that matters, especially early in that first round. I think it was immaturity. I don't think he was told the right things to say, the right things to do. And obviously, I think a lot of those young kids are trying to make an impression.
Right.
And sometimes they don't do it in the right way.
Yeah, and again, he is a guy that is just tough.
Yes.
And everybody that likes him kind of scouted him and say he plays wide receiver almost like a linebacker is how I heard him described.
Well, and there's the Browns, if you think about what the Browns, if they go after Mekhi Lemon, they're on that offense, they have to figure out an identity, and identity starts with guys who have attitude and guys who have passion to play. And when you watch Mekhi Lemon, when he plays against, and especially when he plays a really good defensive back, he's competitive. And that's what you want to see out of a guy who's your number one receiver. Now, is he a true outside 6'3" guy like Carnell Tate? No. But in a traditional offense like Kevin Stefanski, there's others in the NFL, I would say, yeah, we got to go Carnell Tate. In a matchup offense, maybe it's Mekhi Lemon because he's, I think, the best matchup guy besides Jeremiah Love in this draft.
He's also a guy that seems to find open spots in the zone really well.
Yeah.
And that there was a study done, the metric over the last, I think it's 8 years. Guys that win against zone, 70% more likely to have success in the NFL.
Yeah, Tim Bielek, he's we do draft pods all the time together, and I always do the film, and Tim is a master of the numbers and way smarter than I am. So when Tim talks about the ability to get open and get zone, what it tells me from the film is that he understands coverage. So when Tim gives me the numbers, I'll say, you know what, the film matches up, because when you watch him and you have off coverage, you have to find out where the underneath coverage is. The guy that's corner, he's got the deep half. So it tells you that he has a deep understanding of what teams are trying to do.
The other thing is that tells you don't have to run a 4-3 or a 4-4. If you understand how to beat coverage, you're going to win.
Well, a lot of times, remember, you're not running a 4-4 or 4-5 if you don't know what you're doing, right? And the more you know what you're doing, the better understanding you have, the faster you run. My dad was always a big believer, if you're thinking, you're not moving. And the more you understand, the more you just react and play.
So the Titans are on the clock, getting ready to make the 4th pick in this draft. And it's kind of interesting. There's going to be a decision for Andrew Berry. And the question, Lance, becomes, is somebody going to sit there and look at Caleb Downs or Sonny Styles and be willing to give you a little bit more than they initially thought they would?
Well, you would think numbers people would be interested in Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese, the guys who, the measurement people I call them, right? Guys who really rely on length and speed and arm length. Those are important factors to a lot of GMs. The film has to match for me, but there's a lot of guys that they, have success with that. And you would think there's somebody out there going, Sonny Styles is 6'5", 250 and can run, right? we got to go get him. If he's not gone by 6, we got to go get him.
And the Titans select wide receiver Carnell Tate with the 4th pick. So Carnell Tate will not be on the board.
Well, it's interesting. So I had Carnell Tate at number 3. But again, I had Tate, Lemon, and Tyson, all really kind of unique, but I didn't think a huge difference. Now, the thing that Carnell Tate gives you, he's 6'3", he's long, he's really good at the catch point. He can do a lot of things really well. So if you watch him, he's got really strong hands. Now, some of the evaluations you have is because he had Jeremiah Smith on the other side. And that is part of it because, once again, he's not getting coverage. But if you look here, this back shoulder fade, he catches the ball with his hands. He's got great body control. He's got great spatial awareness. He understands where he's at on the field. And coming out of Ohio State doesn't mean he's going to be good, but it means he's been coached very, very well. This is what you get out of Carnell Tate, that vertical threat, post routes, the ability to use that length and that speed to go get the football. And at Ohio State, he did a great job of not only going to get the ball, but going to get the ball in space. And again, that outside threat that a lot of people wanted for the Browns, this was the best guy in the draft. The good thing for the Browns, if they still want a guy, there's guys like Chris Brazil and Malachi Fields. Now, this was the best true outside receiver for me in the draft in terms of I can run a post. If you think about what the Browns have wanted out of Ced Tillman, right? So this would be, the Browns would want Carnell Tate if they don't think highly of Ced Tillman. I'll be honest with you, I think Monkin thinks he can get something out of Ced Tillman. So I think that's why I think they're going to go, if they go receiver, I think they go Mekhi Lemon. Because I think they think, and when you see Ced Tillman, I know he hasn't produced and it's been injuries, but man, when you stand next to him at practice, what a big physical kid. Obviously, Carnell Tate is a kid who's going to be very successful just because of that length, that ability to go get the football, great catch radius, and again, really well coached by Hartline and those guys at Ohio State.
You see the number if you want to give us a call and get involved, 330-963-7763. The other thing is so the Titans get Cam Ward, they go and they get a nice big wide receiver who can win 50-50 balls. Yeah,
and Cam Ward likes to stretch the ball vertically down the field, so you're going to get a lot of that. And in that offense, and once again, that's more of a system-based offense with the Titans. So the system-based offense, you need that traditional outside big receiver. You're thinking post, go routes, red zone matchups. Those are important for in that traditional red zone, that traditional offense. Now, once again, you can see him lined up out here. When he is by himself, that's the one concern you have because the best corner went with Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah.
So that concern people have is true. And when you watch the highlights, when you go back and you watch Carnell Tate, that's very true. He gets to the second corner, but he wins, and he wins all the time, and the numbers match the film. So a very good pick here. Not shocking, like you said, with Cam Ward.
Yeah, so the Giants, the New York Giants are up with the 5th pick. They will also have the 10th pick. So kind of interesting to see now. They got a lot of defensive players on the board there.
I mean, you got Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, Ruben Bain. There's the Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon. People love him. You got Spencer Fano if they want to go offensive line. There is a lot of really good players for the Giants. And obviously the Giants, they have holes again. They have depth issues on the offensive line. They need more. They have Malik Neighbors. They got to go out and get more athletes. They got to get more players. Once again, the thing about if you have the Browns are in a position like the Giants, are they going to take the best player? And right now, for me, the best player, if I had to pick, would be obviously one of the Ohio State guys. You got Arvell Reese, you got Sonny Styles, you got Ruben Bain, 3 guys that I would run I'm running there. So for the Browns, one of those 6 is going to be there. And if Caleb Downs is not taken here, I'd be shocked if the Browns at least are not thinking about Caleb Downs, because Caleb Downs is a unique safety. The Giants, people have told me they'd be shocked at the Giants, but I don't think they thought, even that he was going to be here even now. So obviously the Tate pick was a little bit earlier than I thought it was
Right.
going to be. So once again, the draft never seems to fail. But once again, you don't need 32 teams that like you. You need one. And obviously the Titans loved him, and they went out and got him. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so the Giants are on the clock. Ian Rappaport is reporting that the Browns are in talks with the Chiefs to potentially trade back to 9. In talks, so we'll see.
Well, I think those talks probably just amped up with Carnell Tate being gone. And what that means is that if you're going to move back, you want to move back so regardless of who you pick, you have 3 guys or 4 guys left. You have 4 guys we would take. I'll move back to 9 because I'm going to get one of those 4 and I'm going to get more value. Once again, I'm not trading out of 6 right now, right? Because I have, if those guys are there for me, I'm going to get these guys. I think there's a couple blue chippers in this draft. And Caleb Downs is the number 1 guy on the board. And if the number 1 guy, I don't care what position he plays, you go. If you think that, who knows what they're thinking? That would be me. But we're going to see what happens here because trading back, if they're in heated talks, they did not think Carnell Tate was going to go there. And now there's more guys left on their board that they love.
All right, we told you can call us 330-963-7763. We will take live phone calls. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, though.
If what you saw at yesterday's first minicamp wasn't an indictment on our wide receiver core, and you keep on saying, we need a quarterback, no, we need wide receivers. We have people that literally slow down on their routes. We don't need that. We need capable wide receivers that's going to be the difference makers. And I feel like Bond can't be the only guy like that on our football team. That's why Sanders leaned on him so much last year. We can't have that. We need capable wide receivers who's not going to quit before the ball is even in his area. It's about effort. That's what Todd Monkin said, effort.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. You and I have been calling for touch guys, yard guys, contested catch guys.
Well, it's funny. Go ahead.
And again, the quarterback play has to be better, but the wide receiving play can help the quarterback play be better.
Well, yeah, and what they have to do is it's a combination of everything. The quarterbacks have to play better, and it's not living in these extremes. Like yesterday's camp, the play they're talking about, Malachi Corley, I would assume he thought maybe it was an option route, and he thought maybe he should sit, was kind of unaware. Those are things you're working out, and you don't really want to judge. That's why keeping track of completions, incompletions in practice sometimes can be misleading because you don't know who's wrong. But what you want to be a learning session. And what I saw yesterday is that they're learning a new offense, and I thought they all did really good in terms of what it was. It was a first veteran rookie, mini camp. They all had great tempo, great energy. They all did really good things, and they all made a bunch of mistakes. That's kind of what you expect the first time on the field. So yesterday wasn't a true indication. I thought the receivers actually had a pretty good day yesterday. We know their limitations, but the thing that has not been, and I'm going to use Ced Tillman as an example, they have not maximized what Ced Tillman does well. Comebacks, curls, dig routes, red zone. That's what Todd Monkin. So whatever you can squeeze out of Ced Tillman, now you're going to see it. If he can't do it with Todd Monkin, then he can't do it.
Yeah, and again, I'm not in any way saying that. Yeah, if you've watched the show, I've been pounding the table for playmakers and wide receivers.
Yeah, we've said it a couple times for years now.
I think they are going to get some playmakers. I don't know if it will be with their first pick, but it'll be interesting to see. What do they get if in fact they trade back? The Chiefs have the 9th pick. So do you get a first round pick next year? Do you get? I think they have the 29th pick. Do you get another first-round pick here? So it depends on how much you're willing to pay. I'm with you though. If Styles or Downs is there, man, you're gonna have to overpay to get.
Yeah, and not many people want to give up that 27. As I start my 27 stuff, which I did today, start looking at quarterbacks because it's a really good quarterback class. I had Trinidad Chambliss at 6th in this year's before he came back. I got him at 16 right now. Right, obviously that can change as the season goes on, but it's a pretty deep class, and I don't think a lot of teams want to give up those first rounders in 2027. Right. So if that happens, right, if there's a price out there, but again, a guy like Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs there might be a GM just like with the Titans that go, you know what, Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs are too good to pass up. We got to make it happen.
Yeah, again without question, and it is Arvell Reese who does go to New York, but with the Giants.
Yeah, you know,
so the Giants take Arvell Reese. That's not a surprise. At his workout, John Harbaugh was talking to him and instructing him. This doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, when you think of Arvell Reese, he's a bigger version. I'm not saying a better version, but he's a bigger version of what Kyle Hamilton is when you talk about with Harbaugh. He's a guy who is super long, 6'4", 240 out of Glenville. He's a guy that you're going to see here coming on a blitz. So he can blitz from the edge. I've seen him stand 300-pound linebacker tackles up in the Big Ten with one arm. He's a very talented guy, plays with a lot of violence. The thing he does really, really well is that he pass rushes, and he doesn't even know what he's doing on the pass rush. He's simply winning with athleticism. So his athleticism will allow him to be coached. Obviously, we know his story coming out of Glenville with Ohio State. Really sounds like a great kid. He's only going to get better. That's the scary thing about Arvell Reese. Once again, Sonny Styles and him, these guys are unique in their skill sets that they can play so many positions, even at the NFL level. You know, you can put Reese can be a stand-up backer, and then you can put him in nickel. You can put him at that rush end where Miles plays because he can hold up in the run game if they decide to run it. Arvell Reese is a unique talent. To be honest with you, I'm surprised he made it to 5. But as we said going in this, 2 to 12 is an interesting thing now. Now the Browns are up, and the number 1 guy on my board is there, and we'll see what they want to do. I think Caleb Downs is the best player in this draft. I think Sonny Styles is right there, but for me, this is a no-brainer right now. I wouldn't even have the commissioner wouldn't even have to leave left the podium right there because that's how talented I think Caleb Downs is.
So you don't want to hear that they traded the pick to the Chiefs?
No, I don't want to hear it right now. I don't. I really don't. But
they did trade the pick.
Did they trade the pick?
We'll find out what the compensation is, but they did trade the pick to the Chiefs.
Well, it's very interesting. So it tells you one thing. One is probably Caleb Downs wasn't on their list. It tells you that they think maybe Mekhi Lemon or Fano. Maybe they have a guy, maybe they are going to address that tackle. I'm okay with that too. I'm just big on not overthinking when you have 5 picks in the first 107 and you're limited and it's a deep class at some of these positions, deeper than most people think, you got to go out and get some guys. So if it's Fano, great. If it's Lemon, great. I would still say because Ian Nacho and the way the things slide, you know, see what happens here with the next couple picks and what teams need. But there's going to be some really high level. Kenyon Sadiq is still on the board. There's a kid that's super talented with Fannin. That could be a matchup nightmare in this offense. And tight ends are the quarterback's best friend. So we're going to see what happens. Obviously, the Chiefs will come up. And obviously, I think this pick, I would assume anybody trading up right now is thinking Sonny Styles and Caleb Downs are on the board. We got to go get them.
Well, and they get ahead of the Commanders, who probably were looking at Caleb Downs. They liked Carnell Tate. Tate went off the board at 4. So it will be interesting to see. There's some thought that the Chiefs were going to go defense.
Here's my thing. Here's what I think about the Browns. Obviously, last year it worked out. They traded down. They had a great draft. I'm not a big believer in overthinking it and trade down to get more picks. At a certain point in time, you got to draw the line in the sand and say, I got to win right now. And what helps me win right now is Caleb Downs or Sonny Styles. Now, maybe you have your guy and you think he's going to be available at 9, but I just don't think with the Browns where they're at, they got to go out and get the players. And once again, it worked last year, so it's not that it can't work. It's just right now I'm not sure. You know, Caleb Downs was number 1 on a lot of people's board. I'm not unique in that thought process. You know, we'll see. I'd be shocked in the next couple picks. You know, I don't think Caleb Downs is going to be available at 9. I'd be shocked. And if he's available at 9, I'd go get him. but we'll see.
So the Browns trade out of it, and here it is. They get 9, 74, and 148 for the 6th pick.
Yeah, that's, you know, and once again, here's the thing about the depth at the tight end position, at the projection guys you can get at tackle when you think about Zune kid out of Texas A&M. There's going to be some guys who are available in that 70 to 90 range that are going to be really good players. Then you talk about guys like Zachariah Branch, receivers, tight ends, Royer kid out of Cincinnati. There's going to be kids that the Browns can go get that are going to be high-level guys. You know, now you got a couple more picks. So once again, I wouldn't have done it. They didn't go too far.
No.
And they got something out of it. So
they got a 3rd round and 5th round, and they moved back 3 spots.
Which tells you that 3 guys I would think there's 3 guys they had. So no matter who these, even if they take the next 2, they have 1 guy they want.
Yeah, and I'm guessing it's going to be a tackle. Mm-hmm. That would be the other
I'd be
thing.
shocked if, you know, obviously, do they go upside with Freeling and Iheanacho, or do they take what I think is the really sure bet to be a really good pro, which is going to be Spencer Fano?
Yeah, it'll be interesting. So the Chiefs, they take the cornerback from LSU, Mansour Delany.
Yeah, Mansour Delany, he's a number one cornerback on my board. He's in my top 25. He's a guy who's super, super talented, very sticky. I think there's a couple corners that I have that are really good in both zone and man. Mansour Delany is probably the best combination of a zone man corner. He's about almost 6 foot, 5'11", 6 foot, about 190 pounds, really can run. The thing you like about Delany is his ability. He's competitive, and you see him, if you go back and watch his film, you'll see how competitive he is. And the thing about LSU that I really liked is they play a lot of man and zone. So this is not shocking because he is the number one corner on the board. It's shocking because I think, for me, I'm thinking through the Browns, like right now I'm thinking through the Browns scope, and are the Browns feeling good about where they're at 9? They got an extra pick, which I think there's going to be some good players. So again, I'm not for trading down, but it seems like it's working out right now because I don't think that I did not have Delany going. I had him going in the mid-first round, but super talented guy, really, really good in man coverage. Had an outstanding year, especially at LSU, which really struggled this year.
Lance Reisland and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We will have more of Sports4CLE's draft night coverage. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games wait for you and me. The Ohio Lottery. Put a little play in your day. Put a little play in your day.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
Sports4CLE's Draft Night Special continues along with Lance Reisland. I'm Dave Bacon. The Browns trade back from 6 to 9. They pick up a 3rd and 5th round pick. So on the clock now is the Washington Commanders, and they are getting set to pick at 7. Then it goes to the Saints, and then to the Browns.
Well, you got to think here. Mekhi Lemon's an option for Washington. Tyson's an option for. I think Sadiq is in the play here just because he's so talented. We're going to see. I know they're going to try to get Jane Dallin some weapons on offense. And once again, it's never wrong. A lot of these guys, in terms, they think inside out. So are they going to go with, a Spencer Fano? You can never get enough offensive defensive linemen. Or again, do they just say, hey, there's a couple guys on the board that are just so talented, we got to go take them.
Yeah, Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs still out there. 2
of the most athletic guys. Sonny Styles, like I said, might be one of the most athletic guys in the last 10 drafts. You're talking about a guy who's 6'5", 245, runs, jumps, short area burst, all those terms we use. He's as good as it gets.
So, kind of interesting. Again, I think the trade back tells me Monroe Freeling. hell, if Fano's still there, Fano.
Yeah, it's at this point in time, you got to think Fano. You got to think, and once again, in this offense, when you think about Zay Flowers, who Monkin had it with the Ravens, you got to think that if Makai Lemon is there at 9, he's got to be in the discussion, because if you go back before Makai Lemon had a tough time at the combine, let's just say that in his interviews, he was thought of in the same breath. In fact, so many people dropped him off the board because of those interviews. And then I've heard in the last couple of days, and for me, I'm going to tie it to, immaturity, not character.
Right.
He seems like he has a good character. So, and then we got Sonny Styles just went off the board to the Washington
Commanders.
Commanders. So again, obviously a position of need, but this is a best player on the board for me. This guy's too good not to take. And obviously now the Browns are sitting where they have need, and there's tons of value on the board. Even with the Saints coming up, we'll be very interested. Sonny Styles, like I said, there's very few athletes that you can consider putting in Sonny Styles' level. You're talking about a kid 6'5", he's 6'5", 245, played safety, Ohio kid, then moved down to that linebacker. And when you watch him on film, you see so many similarities, and you see his ability to play that safety. But more importantly, you're going to see what that does. When you move down from safety, as a safety, especially in an Ohio State defense, you have to understand what that front seven's doing. If they're blitzing, you're replacing. If you're down in the box, you got to be a box guy. And then all of a sudden he gets big and strong. Now he moves down, but keeps all the speed, and now he moves down to the linebacker spot. So you can say that this is the worst he'll be at linebacker this year, right? Because this is the first time he's been a full-time linebacker. He's going to get to Washington, and he's only going to get better. You're talking about a guy who's probably going to pay at 255, runs like he does. You never judge. Everybody's got their own plan. Passing on guys like Sonny Styles, when you look back, you go, why would we pass on a guy like that? That's the kind of athlete he is.
So Saints are up next. There was some thought that wide receiver was what they would look for their young quarterback, Tyler Shuck.
Yeah, I would think, Makai Lemon, Jordan Tyson, there's some other guys at KC Concepcion's been high on people's boards. You also got to think in terms of helping a quarterback, Kenyon Sadiq here, just because of that athletic ability. And for me, he's not a guy you're going to put in line to block, put his hand on the ground, but he can create matchups inside. And when they say a quarterback's best friend is tight end, what they're really saying is that you're minimizing the space you have to throw it, right? If you can throw it between the hashes, it's just a lot less room for error. So I think, I would think Makai Lemon, Tyson, or Kenyon Sadiq if they're going to get help for Shook.
Yeah, and again, they may look at Caleb Downs and say, we didn't think that guy was going to be here.
Again, it's very Sonny Styles style. So once again, now, if the Browns move down to 9 and still get Caleb Downs, that would be for me, that would be incredible because of the value I have on Caleb Downs. So you're getting a guy who I think is number 1 in the draft. You get him at 9, and you get another pick. Where positions you need. So when you think about where the Browns, when you think in those 70 to 90, the extra pick they got, you're thinking guys like Bud Clark. You're thinking guys like Royer, the tight end. There are so many guys. Jacob Rodriguez, the linebacker out of Texas Tech, gives you great depth there. There's going to be some great edge guys that are available. Messidor, the kid out of Miami on the other side of Bain. There's going to be some really good players. So you get Caleb Downs, or once again, maybe they just don't overthink it and they go, you know what? We move down, we're taking Fano. We move down, we're taking Lemon if he's there. We'll see. I would think if they're trying to get help, the best player on the board besides Downs right now would be Makai Lemon for what the Saints need.
Yeah, the other thing is if you're the Browns, you could very well have traded back 3 spots, picked up the 3rd and 5th round pick, and the same tackles that you were looking at 6 are still there.
Well, the funny thing about the tackles is, are they thinking guys right now, like we need a left tackle who's got to play this year, or are they thinking we need a guy, we have the versatility they've talked about. Do they think they can move Elton Jenkins out to that tackle, which I think they can, and then they feel like they got some depth inside? Do they have high hopes for DeJuan Jones? The one thing I will tell you about DeJuan Jones, he's in great shape. And it's always been about staying healthy with him. And when you're 6'9", 300 pounds, that's why I don't like those guys sometimes.
Right.
It's just really hard to stay healthy at that size. And he's athletic, which makes it harder on him. So I think DeJuan Jones, it tells you a lot of where they think of that tackle. If they take, it's one of those things. Fano, for me, is the sure bet. He can play early. The guys who probably have the higher ceiling are Monroe Freeling. And the more I think about it, the guy with the highest ceiling for me is Max Iheanacho. I think that kid is just freakishly talented for only playing football for a year or so.
Yeah, and you might be able to get him in the second, middle of the second round.
Yeah, you're talking, you get to like pick 39 and he's still around. Well, you talk about the depth at receiver. Now, if the Browns are thinking tackle, as you get past like 17 to 20, now you're at 20, moving into the 20th pick of the first round, moving into day 2. Now you have all these receivers. So maybe there wasn't a ton of receivers that people thought would go 1 through 10, but there is a boatload of receivers that people are going to go from 20 to the third round. There's guys who will be very high valued day 3. A guy like Zach Branch, because of his size, will probably be available on day 3, and he gives you a lot of Zay Flowers vibes too in terms of matchups and what Monkin likes to do.
So I think they're going to end up going offensive line. They're going to take a tackle. I thought it was Fano. With them trading back, they may have liked Freeling better than him, and they just weren't comfortable taking. Although if you're going to take a guy at 9, why wouldn't you take him at 6?
Well, the idea of if I'm moving back, and when we talk about not overthinking it, if you're talking about making your football team better, obviously Freeling, Iheanacho, Fano, these guys are going to make your team better right now. You're replacing that left tackle, or you think you're replacing that left tackle. But there's a guy on the board, if Caleb Downs is on the board, for me that doesn't make a lot of sense. When you turn on the tape, when you watch football, the teams that are better, it's not because they're better coached. Everybody wants to say that. It's because they have better players. And Caleb Downs is a better player. When you turn on the film, Caleb Downs is the best football player on the field the last 2 years. Him and Jeremiah Love are so good. Obviously, it's not the need, but now you're getting to this point where how do you pass up a guy like Caleb Downs if he's at 9? I don't know how you do it.
All right. And again, you trade back 3 spots, you pick up a 3rd and a 5th. If it's not a tackle, do you think it's Mekhi Lemon if he's still on the board?
I do. I would think, it depends on what they thought. They went to the Tyson workout. What do they think of Tyson? And, he's intriguing. The injuries worry you, but now he's a guy that kind of gives you a little Carnell Tate and he gives you a little Lemon. And he's super talented. There's no doubt about that. The reason I didn't have him as my number 1 receiver is that injury. That injury bothers me. And as you said, people go to Arizona with soft tissue. You don't get soft tissue injuries in Arizona. That's where old people like me go to retire. So you worry about that because, even though the Browns are going in a dome, he's going to be playing at Cincinnati. He's going to be playing at Baltimore. He's going to be playing at Pittsburgh. He's going to be playing on grass on those. So you worry about those soft tissue things in this cold weather.
Yeah, and so we're awaiting the pick of the Saints at 8, and then Browns come up at 9.
And this should be interesting because you gotta imagine, they took a risk last year and went out and got Shuck. And everybody, my only issue with last year with Shuck is that he was older, and I think he's gonna be really good. Now, if you're going with him as your guy, you got to go out and you got to get him talent.
Yeah, and again, all the tackles still on the board. We haven't had an offensive tackle selected, and most people think there's going to be a run middle of the first round where you see 7 or 8 of them come off the board.
Well, you got to think with tackle, if Andrew Berry sticks to what he likes to do, 2 things will happen. Right here, I will say this, and I am not for this, but the number 1 tackle on the board, I would say on Andrew Berry's board, is Caden Proctor, because he fits all the tools. Now, I'm not saying I like it, but when you talk about the measurements, 6'7", 340, that's also Monroe Freeling, super talented. Iheanacho is super talented. And then Fano, I still have number 1 tackle on my board because he can play multiple positions because of his athleticism.
Yeah, that concerns me. The whole question, how much he likes football, concerns me greatly, especially at offensive line.
Well, in offensive line, it can't be a job. It's got to be a passion. And as we stated earlier, I always watch, the thing that's been most impressive going down to Browns practice every single day is Joe Bitonio. Joe Bitonio looks like he's fighting for a job. And people are like, what do you mean? I'm like, the guy doesn't miss a drill. The guy is physical in everything he does. He's first in line. He runs every drill like he's fighting for his job. Possible future pro because he has passion. So,
and Tyson goes to the Saints. So it's Jordan Tyson who goes 8th overall. So Downs is still there at 9. Mekhi Lemon's still there at 9.
So I had
and all the tackles are still there at 9.
So you've done a good job of. So once again, trading back, though it's not me, they've done a good job of if they go get a guy now. Now, is it Mekhi Lemon? Maybe they didn't like him at 6. For me, he's number 1 on my board. Is it Lemon? But I gotta go Caleb Downs here. Once again, if I, as an offensive coordinator for decades, you get a free safety that controls the center of the field. And I'm not talking, and people, I think, Andrew Berry was right. I think people use the word generational too much. And I will say this, I've used it too much. But Caleb Downs does fit in that category for me because of the impact he has. Now, he might not be Ed Reed in talent-wise, but some guys just impact the football game differently. For me, Caleb Downs does it. Now, Jordan Tyson is a guy, out of Arizona State. He has all the measurables. He can go get the ball. He's good from the slot. He's good outside. He's really good at all three levels that I grade a receiver at. He's really good off the line of scrimmage versus zone versus man. He's great at the catch point, and he's really good run after catch. His big concern is going to be his ability to stay healthy. Can he stay healthy for a full season, which has been a struggle for him? And once again, when you talk soft tissue issues, you're talking guys who make lots of cuts and they sprain ankles. And when you watch him on film, he's highly electric. He's almost too sudden and twitchy for his own good. So I worry about his health because that's been an issue. So that's why I had him at number 2. So once again, for me, you get excited because you got the number 1 player on the board. I got my number 1 receiver on the board. It tells you probably I'm not thinking like the GMs, right? That's why I'm here and not there. You got the number 1 tackle on the board. You got areas of need and best players on the board. Brown's got to be pretty happy right now.
Yep, and again, they'll pick, I think it's 73rd. So they'll 3 picks after their pick in the 3rd round tomorrow night. They'll get another pick.
Which is great, like I said, because, positions like tight end, if you think about the depth they need. So they need depth at safety. They're going to need depth at corner. Really good. There's some good depth at corner. They're going to need a backup line. They're going to need some linebacker help. A guy like Jacob Rodriguez probably be available because of the run on tackles and the depth at receiver and the depth of the interior line. You're talking Oliva Vega is going to be gone. Jennings Dunker. Jake Slaughter. There's a lot of really good guys out there.
So that's another interesting one. Vega. That could be. Maybe you don't want to take a guard at 6. But if he's the best offensive lineman in your board, maybe you're more willing to take him at 9.
Well, and, Ethan Posick is a guy who's getting older, and he struggled last year with guys in his face, that odd front when guys had a nose right on his face. You can go out right now. The best center in this draft, and for me it's not close, is Jake Slaughter. So, you get to pick 24, and you go, you know what? When they talk about the versatility, they talk about all this, maybe you go, you know what, let's get our anchor inside. He's a guy that can make all the calls. He'll be your center for the next 10 years. You go out and get him. And now you got some depth. Or you get Olivaga Oana, and you move him inside, and you move Jenkins out to the tackle. And then maybe you go get Iheanacho because he's available at 39. So they have what they've done with the offensive line, and I tell people this, they haven't fixed it, but they've addressed it. And when you've addressed it, now they have some flexibility. It doesn't hurt to stack talent in there too. And that's something once again, this is the stacking talent. And you have all these guys on the board right now. You got number 1s on the board for a lot people who are a lot smarter than me and watch just as much film. Browns are in a pretty good position to get a really impactful player here.
Yeah, and again, if it's you're going Caleb Downs.
I think I would go Caleb Downs, but I'd be shocked if it's not Fano right here. I'm going to be honest with you. I think Fano is the guy they're going to go with. I think they like. And when they say versatility, when you talk about versatility, you and I were talking about versatility, it's because they can't play one position. That's the one way to look at it. The other way is he's really good and he can do different things. The thing that sold me on him is that he can play center too. So he can move his feet as that left tackle, pretty good at right tackle. You can put him down at guard. But once again, it's at 6'5", 6'6". He's 306 pounds, so he's going to add some weight. I like guys at tackle that need to add weight, not reduce it. Joe Thomas style, because you keep that quickness. So yeah, it's got to be Fano. Maybe it's Makai Lemon. But once again, if they feel that they're going with we're staying away from the best players and we got to fill needs, then you go Spencer Fano here. I am running up to the board with Caleb Downs card in my hand. Yeah. I would have ran up there at 6. So
the one thing I do like about Fano, nasty. I want my lineman nasty.
Well, and he played for Utah and Kyle Whittingham. If you talk about guys who like to get after it and run pro style, so you got guys who are running zone, gap schemes, pass protection, different types of schemes. So Fano did it all with Whittingham out in Utah. So it might be the call here, and you will see the influence Warhop has here.
And it is going to be Spencer Fano to the Browns. So they got the guy that a lot of people thought they would get at 6. They got him at 9. They picked up a 3rd and a 5th.
So I'm not mad. Once again, here's the thing. Linemen are never sexy, right? You want skill players. So what you get out of Spencer Fano, you're going to see Spencer Fano here. He's a guy that can do everything right. So you see him running in space. That's wide zone, finishes every play. You'll see him run his feet on every play. You'll never see him taking plays off. You'll see that's just an inside zone. The defensive end crosses the face. He drives him down. Really good on the double team. Utah is very good up front on both sides of the ball. You'll see him there crashing down on that 3 technique, does a great job of that. Once again, it's like an Ohio State offensive line receiver. It doesn't mean he's automatically going to be good because he played at Utah, but what it does tell you, he's well coached. And he understands where to put his feet, where to step near foot, how to use his hands, where to step, what the front is what is the front he's seeing. And what's important for an offensive lineman is the why, right? And that's what they do at Utah, going back to Callahan, and hopefully Warhop does it, is we're blocking this guy, and here's what the second level guy is gonna do because here's what they're in. So yeah, this is a super unsexy, really good pick. You're never wrong. So when you talk about the receiving depth, you talk about all the things. If you get better linemen, your skill players become better because they have bigger holes and quarterbacks will have longer to protect. So obviously, I think they see this guy as a left tackle. I do too. And I think he can play early because he is a very tough kid.
Yeah, so in theory, that kind of is the final piece for the starting part of the offensive line, potentially. And I know you got DeJuan Jones, if he's healthy, but it continues the rebuild of the line. Go get me some playmakers.
There's no question. So, no, now you're thinking playmakers. Now we get into where we're getting to. Now you're starting to think, obviously, Mekhi Lemon is there. You have Kenyon Sadiq as a major, super talented tight end who can do a bunch of different things. But then you got, the receiver. You got Omar Cooper out of Indiana, Casey Concepcion out of Texas Tech. These guys are all going to slide. There's a bunch of guys who are being picked right now that people thought were going to be in the first round, but not yet. So Omar Cooper's going to probably be available at 24. Casey Concepcion's going to be available at 24. Those are guys that can go get the ball and be electric in space. You might double up with that. You might go with Branch, who, when you pick these guys that you don't think are going to go, these guys everybody starts to slide. And there is, once again, I say this without hesitation, there is such depth at the receiver position.
Yeah, I agree. And another offensive lineman goes to the New York Giants is they draft Maui Noah. That one concerns me just with the disc and all that. I want my offensive lineman to have intact backs.
Well, yeah, and the thing that you worry about with Maui Noah is that, I would think with Harbaugh, because Harbaugh is an old school coach in terms of their run game, wanted Warhop to go with him. I see Maui Noah moving down into, I think he stays at right tackle. We've been talking about the Browns needing a left tackle, but Maui Noah is a really good right tackle. He's a guy, when you think about a right tackle being able to block down, be able to zone block, once again, come with Cristobal out of Miami. There's a NFL type of energy they have. Another thing that people don't talk about with Maui Noah that I think is very, very important is he had to block Ruben Bain and Mesidor every day in practice.
Yep.
And you get better every single day when you place really good talent. When you talk about teams that are really good, it's teams that every day face really good talent. And he was facing 2 NFL guys every single day, so he only got better. I wouldn't be shocked if he moved down to guard. I expect him to play probably that right tackle start and then move down to guard if he's having trouble blocking off the edge.
So the Dolphins traded their pick to the Cowboys. I'm assuming the Cowboys are coming up to get Caleb Downs.
There's no question about it. This is a Jerry Jones style thing, right? And Caleb Downs, such a talented player. As I've said, I had him number 1 on my board, and it wasn't really close either. Now, number 1 on the board and through the Browns, scope was a little different because the Browns needed such help. But if you're in a normal situation, this Caleb Downs kid, he'll be really good, really fast. I've been wrong before, but usually when you talk about a guy who's not at a quarterback position or is just allowed to use his athletic ability, it's hard to miss on these guys like Caleb Downs. I'd be shocked. I'm shocked he's here. Every year we talk about a guy who's shocked, right? This is a shocker that he's here this late in the first round.
Yeah, so they move up and draft 11th, where the Dolphins were. So it'll be interesting to see. There's still some wide receivers that are intriguing, but they're probably not going to get one of the top 3 wide receivers at 24.
Well, here's the thing, though. So it depends on, as we move forward, who's trading down and what needs you have. So because of there's depth, and once again, so Lemon's still on the board. But then if you talk about guys that are matchup guys that aren't matchup guys for everybody, right? So not everybody likes a Casey Concepcion because he's undersized and has had drop issues. Not everybody likes Omar Cooper because, once again, he's kind of limited to being inside. Todd Monkin loves those guys. Zay Flowers is a classic example. Then you got guys like Zachariah Branch. But then if you want a big receiver, you got Malachi Fields, you got Chris Brazil. There's Ted Hurst, the kid out of Georgia State. He's really talented. So there's guys out there they can go get that'll be available at 24. Now, could they trade down because they got it and go get Mekhi Lemon if they think? I don't know. I think coming out of the first round with Fano and Mekhi Lemon would be an outstanding first day.
Lance Reisland and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. We will continue with the Sports4CLE Draft Night Special. The Browns take Spencer Fano with their first-round pick. We'll be back after this timeout.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
You got so much to do. It's got you feeling blue. Put a little flag in your day. 'Cause it's fun all over the state. So come on. Great games wait for you and me. The Ohio lottery. Put a little flag in your day. Put a little flag in your day.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
Sports4CLE's Draft Night Special continues, and the Cowboys do, in fact, take Caleb down, so he comes off the board.
Well, it's interesting because on my big board, I have my top 25 here, and 2 through 9, and then I have a 13 and a 17 are all gone. Number 1 on my board is Caleb Downs, and for me, there was a gap between 1 and 2. I thought Jeremiah Love was the second best player in the draft, but Caleb Downs, when you go back to watch some film yesterday of him against Brock Bowers when he's at Alabama, his ability to cover in space. You're talking about a guy who can play the one hi-hat safety. He can be down in the box. He can play the nickel linebacker. He can cover slot receivers. He can cover outside receiver. He's violent when he gets there. He runs the alley as good as anybody's run the alley in the last 5 to 10 years from the secondary. Really talented guy.
Let's head to the phones. Phil in St. Clairsville joins us. Phil, how are you?
Doing great. How are you guys?
Doing all right.
Doing well.
So what'd you think of Spencer Fano?
I'm a Monroe Freeling guy, but I'd say Fano would be my second choice.
All right. What'd you think of the trade back, and what do you want at 24?
Well, I love the trade back because we didn't. Because the other choice I would have made would have been receiver, like you guys, Lemon, and then we didn't get a shot at Tyson, but I don't like his injury history at all. So I'm all about availability, and Tyson scared the crap out of me, for lack of a better term.
I'm with you.
But yeah, as far as 24, I really want a receiver. I'm a KC Concepcion guy. I don't like the drops, but you got to remember that quarterback wasn't exactly throwing dimes. So I'm hoping Concepcion scares secondaries in the league, like some of the other guys, like Nakua and Jefferson and some of those guys. But we'll see.
Phil, what position do you think they need to address here as we get towards 24 into the second round? If it's not KC Concepcion, is there any other receivers you like in the draft?
Well, that Jeremy Bernard from Alabama, if we don't take a receiver with 24, maybe he'll be available at 39. I think he's a mauler out there, but he catches everything. He blocks well. But I'm all about offense tonight, guys. I mean, now that we have those extra picks, maybe a defensive guy on the next pick, like a cornerback or a safety, maybe McNeil Warren. That's where I'm at.
Phil, appreciate the call. Thanks very much.
Appreciate you guys. Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right, have a good one. Again, Casey Concepcion. Yeah, we were just talking about.
Well, here's the thing. If you don't like Casey Concepcion, he did have too many drops. And I will say this. It's really, when you watch a receiver, does a receiver catch the ball naturally? And when I watch him, he catches it naturally. And once again, if I watch a kid play catch, I know if he fights it. And he doesn't seem like he's fighting it. It seems like he has lapses in concentration. And people are like, wow, he's going to do that in the NFL. Well, in college, he was better. And when you're better than everybody else and your calling card is run after catch, remember, what he does best is catch the ball and run with it. So if he's a guy that can get the ball in space, so a lot of times he turns his head upfield before he catches it. Once again, if you're worried about that, there's a guy like Omar Cooper out of Indiana, not as explosive but really good. Zachariah Branch, who you can probably get later. But again, he gives you a lot of Zay Flowers type of vibe too. So there's still a lot of skill out there. Kenyon Sadiq is a guy who's very, very talented. See where they go, but there's offensive players and the receivers out there.
Yeah, and to your point, Concepcion, who again scares me. Phil probably watches because I've been talking about the drops repeatedly. The thing that doesn't add up is his contested catch rate is over 50%, which is really good.
Well, it's interesting. So these do they go? You still have guys like Malachi Fields, Chris Brazil, Denzel Boston, leading up to a month before the draft was in the same conversation with Carnell Tate. There's long receivers who are available too. But when we're thinking about the Browns, we're thinking about easy yards and things we talked about. Now, Casey Concepcion plays a lot longer than he is. Again, if he doesn't have the drops, he's right there with Mekhi Lemon.
So the Dolphins are now picking. They swapped picks for a couple of fifth-round picks from the Cowboys. So the Cowboys moved from 12 to 11, and the Dolphins take Caden Proctor with the 12th pick.
So this is an interesting guy for me. So when you break down the film, and you say Caden Proctor, and I use this story all the time. It's not a Jed Wills comparison, but the want-to is a Jed Wills comparison. I go out to practice every single day, and I say this without hesitation. No one ever blocks Myles Garrett. There's times that Jed Wills did. He just didn't do it often enough. And when you see Caden Proctor, this is a Andrew Berry special. You'll see him all the time. He's 6'7". He's 360 pounds. He moves his feet really well. He's nasty when he wants to be. He gets his hips around. He's good on double teams. He gets to the second level well. I think he can play guard or the tackle. He has all the measurables. There's no doubt he's an elite talent. But playing NFL offensive lineman can't be a job. It's got to be a passion. And maybe he's a young kid. And again, I would never want to be judged from 18 to 24 in terms of the decisions I made and how I acted. So you would hope maybe it was just a little bit of immaturity. That's what the Dolphins are banking on, because what they're banking on are the physical gifts this kid has, and they are through the roof. There is no one like him, including Monroe Freeling, including these guys. The difference that makes those guys, the reason the Browns took Fano is Fano finishes every single play. Fano, Freeling, Iheanacho, these guys finish every single play. It's important. It doesn't always seem important to Proctor, but if you get him motivated, he can do things other guys can't.
So Caden Proctor goes to the Dolphins. That means the Los Angeles Rams are on the clock with the 13th pick, working towards pick 24, which is owned by the Browns as well.
Here's what I think about the Rams. When I think about Sean, what he does with his offense, a perfect guy right here would be Kenyon Sadiq. Right? He's a guy that he can do tons of different things. He's really innovative. Sean has really innovated what he does offensively with movement, motion, formations, personnel groups. This is a guy you can do a ton with. He's not a true inline blocker, but McVay's offense is not about killing you. It's about being well coached, getting your backside between the ball carrier and the defender. Kenyon Sadiq is a possibility here. There's still obviously some really good receivers that he would like. But he's a guy, when you talk about McVay, when he went out and got Puka Nacua, if you ever see that, go back and look on YouTube. You can see how much he likes his guys. So don't be shocked if it's a guy that maybe we all don't have on our list here that he has higher, a guy like Kenyon Sadiq. A guy, an edge guy like Kendrick Falk out of Auburn, who's got all the tools in the world. But again, when you talk high-level picks, these are the kinds that scare you with a guy like Sean McVay, because he'll go out and get a guy and maximize his skill set.
Who on the defensive side? Well, there's Bain. Other than Bain, who are some of the big names that are still left defensively?
Well, you got Jared McCoy out of Tennessee, the corner who I had at very high. You got Caden McDonald, defensive tackle out of Ohio State. He's the best run stopper.
Let's welcome in Tim Bielik from the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. So Tim, Spencer Fano, joined by Lance Reisland. I think you know him a little bit. What do you think of Fano?
I like Spencer Fano. I think what I just wrote a story for cleveland.com go up a couple minutes ago, how I kind of thought this decision was kind of made for the Browns, how we'd been talking for weeks and weeks about whether it was going to be an offensive tackle or a wide receiver. And I think when Carnell Tate went off the board, 4th overall, the Titans, the Browns kind of their choice was taken from them. So this makes sense. Drop down 3 spots behind 2 teams that probably weren't going offensive linemen, and you get a guy that a lot of people think was the number 1 offensive lineman in this class in Fano. I kind of had him 1A, 1B to Francis Maui Noah's 1A, but Fano is a guy who I think is more likely to play left tackle. I get the concerns about the shorter arms, but he makes up for it with his movement and his physicality. I think I'd rather have a guy who has shorter arms but can really move out in space and has power and, a good aggressive demeanor than a guy who's got longer arms but doesn't exactly move very well, because in the NFL, it's a game about speed, and if you can't move, it's difficult for you to have success, I think.
All right, Timmy, where are you going at 24? If you're the Browns right now, where are you going at 24 if you can get your guy?
Well, I'm kind of hoping, if I'm a Browns fan or if I'm in the front office, playmaker, someone to drop. I don't know if you talked about who the Rams are taking at 13. If you haven't, I won't spoil it for you. It's interesting. I'll say that much.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
All right, I guess I'll break it to you. Jordan Schultz says the Rams are taking Ty Simpson.
All right.
13th overall. So I think that's good from a Browns perspective. If you're looking for playmakers with not all. I mean, it could be dependent on the offensive line run that a lot of people have been saying is coming, because Kane Proctor went 12th. Already 3 offensive linemen go in these 5 picks with Baltimore coming up. Certainly they could go offensive line. I think you got to go best available playmaker here. This team hasn't drafted a receiver in the first 2 rounds since Corey Coleman in 2016. I just don't think you can go more than 10 years without investing high end in the position. I do think that if it gets to a point where you feel like you don't think Omar Cooper Jr. is going to be falling to you, if, say, the Jets take Mekhi Lemon at 16 to give them a receiver, I trade up for Omar Cooper Jr. I really think he's an outstanding receiver, physicality, speed, breaks tackles, very good in zone coverage. That would be my dream target. And now with 2/3, I think you have ammo to go up and get him if you really think he's a difference maker, which I think he could be a really good receiver. Maybe not a number 1, but I certainly think he's at least can be a quality number 2.
Tim, who do you think outside, you and I were talking last couple weeks, who outside, an outside guy, Boston, Malachi Fields, who do you like outside maybe later in the draft these guys, the Browns can go get to kind of go with like an Omar Cooper, Mekhi Lemon, Zach Branch maybe inside? Who do you like outside that's still on the board?
Going into the 3rd round, I really love Ted Hurst from Georgia State. He's a guy we've talked about a lot. I don't think he's a 2nd round guy. I think he's a 3rd round guy. Has some drop issues, but when I've talked about receivers, I've talked a lot about how guys that win multiple ways to me are more valuable than any physical traits you have. Hurst is a guy who can win with speed, he can win with size, he can win with his hands. Or I shouldn't, maybe not necessarily with his hands because I know he's a high drop rate, so I apologize for that kind of faux pas there. But that's really one of the only glaring weaknesses in Hurst's game. He can break tackles. Is what I meant to say break tackles. I apologize. This draft's kind of going fast this year with the 8-minute clock as opposed to the 10-minute clock. But I think Hurst, in the 3rd round would make a ton of sense. I'm not as concerned about a jump from, group of 6 to the NFL at receiver. Lance really has made up a good point a couple weeks ago talking about how the jump from the perimeter is easier than if you're making the jump as an offensive lineman coming from group of 6 to the NFL compared to power 4 guys. Chris Brazzell is a guy that interests me. I know, there's concerns about the Tennessee system and how that's boosted guys' stock, and Tennessee skill players really haven't performed in the NFL. I think Brazzell is different because he's another guy who can win multiple different ways, and I think he's got more subtlety in his route running than guys his size typically should have. And one stat I've talked about so much over the last couple of years, YPR versus zone. This year, I should say, that's become a stat that I've really focused on because that feels very predictive. Ted Hurst is above that 2.3 threshold. Chris Brazzell is just under it. I think he's around a 2.1. Same with the Alabama's Jeremy Bernard, who I also would like. I think the Browns should consider, maybe potentially as early as the 2nd round at 39. No shortage of receivers to go, but I feel like if you're the Browns and even if you get Omar Cooper, or Casey Concepcion, I would still look at one of those. I would still look at another receiver on day number 2. I think this class has enough guys on day 2, and especially now the Browns get another day 2 pick out of the Kansas City trade, that they could jump in and they should be able to get another playmaker, I think.
Can you see the Browns doubling up with offensive linemen? Say, for some reason, Monroe Freeling slips and is there at 24, or if the guard, Ioane, is still there.
That'd be an interesting thought process there. We shouldn't be surprised. Andrew Berry has typically gone kind of against consensus and what people thought. The Carson Schlesinger pick last year was, the perfect example of that. Obviously worked out for the Browns because Schlesinger has turned into, a guy who could be a top 5 linebacker within, as early as next season. So I guess it shouldn't be surprised if a guy like Maxi Honachor is there, and then you can kick Fano in the garden, and all of a sudden you have the makings of a really good offensive line. So I guess that shouldn't be surprising. I guess it just depends on just what this rush of offensive line looks like. And I just keep coming back to the idea that as much as we talk about protection on the offensive line, at some point against any NFL pass rush, your protection is going to break down. You need guys who are going to get open. And I think that's why I look at 24. It makes the most sense to me to go get the best playmaker possible. And for me with Andrew Berry, I feel like the one thing you can say about his 1st round picks, they've typically made sense.
Yeah, that's absolutely fair. The other thing is Ty Simpson going to the Rams is a pretty good thing because he doesn't have to play right away. And Sean McVay, I think he might be able to develop some quarterbacks.
Yeah, I'd say that's a pretty safe bet. I joked about on Twitter, I did not think that they would be doing this at 13 overall after they traded Trent McDuffie. They acquired Trent McDuffie. They're in their all-in window, and I thought this was a perfect Mekhi Lemon landing spot because of Devontae Adams getting up there in age. But yeah, from a Browns perspective, any team that doesn't take a receiver, that would rather take offensive lineman, that instead is going to go offensive line. If you're looking to get that receiver, that's good news for the Browns. You want to keep seeing these offensive linemen go. You want to see like Ruben Bain go. You want to see maybe Akeem Mesidor or Kendrick Falk or even Jermod McCoy, the corner from Tennessee, who I know is coming off a torn ACL. I still think he's very good. I still would consider him as a first-round prospect in my mind. So there's a lot of ways this all could go. We know that, having watched so many drafts, that there's so many outcomes that are playing out. But, if you're a Browns fan, you want that playmaker, root for those offensive linemen to go, root for defenders to go, because that would be the way you get one of those receivers to follow you. And in my mind, Omar Cooper would probably be the best of the bunch that I could realistically see being there at 24.
Tim, what about Kenyon Sadiq? Or let's say he's available. Let's say he's not, and the Browns need to go get another playmaking tight end. You and I have talked about, I steal your thunder all the time when you talk about the speed of a tight end. We know that Kenyon Sadiq. What if he's there at 24? Would you pull the trigger on him possibly?
I'd be interested, no question about it, because I think you can look at it. You can look at Todd Monkin as a creative play caller, no question, considering the things he's done at Georgia and Baltimore. As far as tight end offenses, he had Brock Bowers at Georgia, and then in Baltimore he had Mark Andrews and then Isaiah Likely. So 2 tight ends can work. I mean, if you have 2 mismatches at tight end, you have so many weapons out of a pure base package. If you want to go 2 tight ends, 2 receivers, and a running back, you have all kinds of weapons. You can probably keep Sadiq more out wide while keeping Fano in more as a blocker. So I think Sadiq needs a little bit more work as a blocker. But are you kidding me? Sub 4.4 speed at about 240 pounds. That seems like that would be an absolute matchup nightmare, especially if you're trying to be a Browns team that now you have Spencer Fano on this offensive line. You have Quinshon Judkins. Maybe you go back to trying to be more of a power run team. And then you could really create a lot of those problems with a guy like Kenyon Sadiq. So certainly options galore if you're the Browns and you want to look at that. But I just think, at that position, best available playmaker 24, or even if you trade up to say 20, would be, to me, the best way to go.
Tim Bielik, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Tim Bielik from cleveland.com. Thanks so much, Tim.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good job. Enjoy the rest of the night. Enjoy the rest of the night, guys. We'll see what happens at 24.
Sounds good. Thanks, Tim. Interesting stuff relative to Ty Simpson going to the Rams. That was one of the landing spots some people thought might have disappeared when they traded away their second first-round pick earlier, but they ended up getting him, so now the Ravens are on the clock.
Well, when I was breaking down Ty Simpson, there's a couple things you think about with Ty Simpson. Once again, I'm old school, so I think about Bill Parcells, and the Bill Parcells kind of way to think of things. It's 30 starts, it's 23 wins, it's all league, there's building some callus. And he doesn't have that. And when you don't have that elite trait, he doesn't have a great arm, he has a good arm. He doesn't have great feet, he has good feet. He's a real high processor. He's really smart. He can do a lot of good things. He's a better athlete than people give him credit for. But you just think he's a year away. So if he's playing for the Browns or a team that's going to struggle maybe a little bit, or he's in the competition, well, he knows right now, he's not the starter, right? Stafford's a starter. When you go there, now he's learning from a guy like, more importantly, people talk about McVay. For me, he's learning from Stafford. And that's going to be so incredible. And the thing that's gone away in the NFL is kind of the Aaron Rodgers rule. It's okay to go to the NFL and sit behind a really good player, learn the game, not get the you-know-what knocked out of you, and then you're ready to play. I think Ty Simpson had to be in the right fit to be really successful, and he's in the perfect fit for him to be a really good pro a couple of years from now.
Well, and the Ravens select Ioane, the guard from Penn State. So Browns will get to see him twice a year.
Well, Ioane is if there's a guy, once again, I say this every year, and you and I have talked about it for a number of years, the Ravens do a great job, along with the Pittsburgh Steelers, of drafting guys who they like. They don't really care about what everybody else says. So when you look at Ioane is a guy who's 340 pounds. He looks like he's the guy off the bus first, right? He is really physical. He's a phone booth player. Once again, when you talk about the 1-2, this is something you don't worry about with Ioane. He's a guy who gets after it every single snap. You see him here, when he gets off the ball, there's an intent to knock somebody out. Very Wyatt Teller-like. He's very good in this, very multiple in his scheme. Just see him here, pull, kick out the end. He can log, he can move, he gets to the second level well. He moves a lot better than people give him credit for. Everybody say he can only do, this is one of the best maulers. Him and Basontis, the kid out of Texas A&M, are the two best maulers in this draft. They are going to try to knock you down If you think about what the Ravens have been, if you think about what the Steelers have been, this is a guy that you kind of go, yeah, that's a no-brainer there.
Yeah, and again, they like being physical up front. That's not going to change, especially when you get a defensive guy in Jesse Mintor now as your head coach. And I like maulers. Maulers are good on your offensive line.
Well, when you think about, obviously you have to prepare for your league. When it goes back to like when the Browns created their defense for the Bengals, and they got this pressure-style defense, really good corners. People in the AFC North, they have to figure out how to block this Browns front. And that's a real thing. And how do you block the Browns front? You got to get really good guys. Now you got Owana, who's going to be going against Mason Graham. Well, you're thinking that's going to be a better matchup for you. And that's kind of the thought process. You got to beat the teams in your conference. Owana is, like I said, he's a guy on film. The limitations are there a little bit with his quickness, maybe a sudden burst, but let him get his hands on you, and you see why he's a first-round pick. When his hands are on you, you're done.
Lance Reisland and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are on the clock with the 15th pick. Sports4CLE's Draft Night Special will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
You got so much to do, it's got you feeling blue. Put a little flag in your day, 'cause it's fun all over the state. So come on, great games away for you and me, the Ohio lottery. Put a little flag in your day, put a little flag in your day.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
Special continues along with Lance Reisland. I'm Dave Bacon. Let's welcome in Stephen Means, Buckeyes beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Stephen, appreciate you joining us. Were you surprised Caleb Downs lasted as long as he did?
No, simply because he's a safety, and he's not necessarily an athletic freak as a safety. He's just a normal size safety, even though when you turn the film on, there's nothing about him that screams I'm a normal safety. So him falling to 11 wasn't shocking. If any of them were going to fall outside of the top 10, it was going to be him. But even then, it's not, I mean, the consolation prize, he went to 11. It's not like he dropped to 21 or anything like that. So Ohio State with 4 of the top 11 guys in the draft, I mean, that's not bad.
Yeah, and he goes to the Cowboys, the team that wanted him probably at 6 if they could have got him there.
Yeah.
Steve, let me ask you a question.
Yeah, so
I'm sorry, go ahead. So let me ask you a question. A guy that I really like, no one talks about Ohio State. I love Caden McDonald. I think he's a heck of a D lineman in there. Where do you think he goes? What kind of scheme do you think he fits in? Is he more of a nose, technique, 2-eye on that guard? Where do you think he fits, and how successful do you think he's going to be?
Yeah, he's a nose. He's as pure of a nose as it gets. I mean, you turn on that film, if you want to know why nobody could run the ball in Ohio State last year, you start with him as the reason why nobody could run the ball. You just watch number 98 just eat up double team after double team. And then obviously what Arvell and Sonny and Caleb were able to do and making tackles and all that's great. But it starts up front with what Caden McDonald was able to do. And essentially just teams were not able to run the ball up the middle on them. And so when you're looking at Fitz, I actually think if the Texans take him, and get out of this world of, it feels like the Texans have been living in this world where they've kind of revolving door around that nose spot while their edges and three techs have been great. For a team who doesn't want to do anything but play too high safety and stop the pass and let their defensive line get after it and stop the run and get after the passer, if you can go get a young guy like Caden McDonald, who again, that's him and Arvell Reese have a lot in common. They haven't played a ton of football. This was his first year as a starter, so you're getting a guy with a ton of upside, even if he isn't necessarily the biggest guy. So I think anywhere in the 20s, I would maybe look at the Texans as like a prime location for him, or maybe even the Bears as two teams who maybe need nose help and need young nose tackles. He fits in perfectly with those two teams, and if he's going to be a first rounder, it's probably going to be in the mid-20s or late 20s anyway.
What's your thoughts on Igbenogson? Where do you think he goes, and what kind of scheme is he? Obviously I watched him play a lot. Where do you think he struggles? Where do you think his strengths are? Zone man? Is he a press guy? What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, Ohio State didn't run a lot of press over the last couple of years here, and obviously because when you don't have a bunch of dudes who are 6'1", 190, you're not doing a lot of press. Davis Igbenogson was kind of the lone star for that for a while. Obviously, their team now has a lot of dudes who are 6'1", built like that. But I think if you pair him with a guy like Sauce Gardner and the Colts, I think that's a good fit for him. I'm actually very intrigued to see where Davis and Igbenogson ends up because physically he has all the traits. And I understand his 2024 film wasn't great. He led the league. He led the nation in penalties. He cut down on that. He went from 16 penalties to like 4 or 5 this past season, which was great to see. I thought his testing was great, but it's also a pretty deep cornerback class, and we haven't seen a bunch of them come off the board quite yet as the draft is continuing to go on tonight. So he could go anywhere from, I think, the 33rd pick in the NFL draft to maybe being the 115th pick in the NFL draft. It might just depend on when does the run of cornerbacks start, and is he a part of that or not, simply because as good of a corner as he is, as the fact that he has all the traits, there's like 8, 9, 10, 11 cornerbacks in this class who maybe look like him. So I think he fits with the Colts. I think he might fit with everybody. It just becomes what's team's cups of tea in terms of where he ends up going in the draft. But I think more than likely it's a day 2. But if he ends up being an early day 3 guy, I won't be shocked either.
Of the guys that went in the first 4 for the Buckeyes, 4 of the first 11, who do you think ends up being the pro that you go, man, this guy, who do you think is going to be the best pro? We'll leave it at that.
So I think you can make a case for all of them. I mean, those Ohio State wide receivers, man, they just never seem to stop being produced. And I understand that people look at Carnell Tate and go, well, he was never the wide receiver 1 on his own team. I think that's disingenuous to say because we all know who the wide receiver 1 on Ohio State football team is. It's not his fault he showed up at Ohio State the same time that a demigod showed up at Ohio State. So I think his pro career might be a lot more productive than his NFL career. Caleb Downs is Caleb Downs. I think he's the most NFL ready of the group. Arvell Reese probably has the highest ceiling just because he is so raw. But I think the guy that maybe has been a little underrated is Sonny Styles. I remember when he got to Ohio State, he was viewed as an athletic freak. He was just a guy who started at safety as a sophomore after reclassifying. So he's technically the same age as a junior in college. He just got there 6 months earlier than that. He started as a safety, moved to linebacker, was a very productive linebacker. And then this past year, he's the guy with the green dot, and he was productive there. So he's got positional flexibility. He's 6'5", 240 pounds. And it feels like a lot of the things that are being applied to Arvell Reese aren't necessarily being applied to Sonny Styles in terms of how draft analysts have talked about them. But if Arvell Reese turns into an edge rusher in 4 years, I won't be shocked. If Arvell Reese is Fred Warner in 4 years, I won't be shocked. I think Arvell Reese's floor is super, super high, and his ceiling is kind of non-existent when you pair the NFL pedigree, obviously his father played in the NFL, the athleticism that he brings to the table. I mean, we saw what he did at the Combine. The football mind that he has. You build your entire defense around players like Sonny Styles. And so it's kind of been shocking for me to see that he hasn't kind of been talked about as if he's just a traditional Mike linebacker. He can do that, but he can do a lot more than just that for your defense. And I think that's why he ended up going to the Tennessee Titans. That's why he ended up on the Commanders, is because simply he can fit a lot of different roles in your defense.
Stephen, I look at Max Clare. When I looked at him last year, especially coming out of Purdue, coming to Ohio State, he seems to have slid a little bit. In your opinion, why has he slid, and where do you see him going, and what did he do well, and what are some things he needs to work on as he gets to the NFL?
I think it's almost two types of tight ends that come out of college now. You're either the guy who can block very, very well, but maybe you as a receiver, you're not that much of a threat yet. You need to work on that. Or you're the guy who's like a slot receiver who's pretending to be a tight end because you're 6'4", 231 pounds. He is the latter in that conversation. I think the pros and cons of him coming to Ohio State were obvious. The pros were, I'm going to play competitive football. I'm going to get developed into a complete tight end and not just be a receiving threat the way I was at Purdue. I think the cons of coming to Ohio State is because he went from the only weapon for the Boilermakers to the third or fourth most important weapon at Ohio State. I think we didn't necessarily get to see him be used in creative ways the same way. We didn't get to see just how much of a threat he could be when you put a linebacker or a safety on him. And the blocking is still something that is a development there. So I think if I'm going to look for a fit for him, I would almost pair him at a place that's got a veteran tight end where he doesn't have to come in right away and be hey, we need you to be tight end one, ultra productive for you. Like, as crazy as it's to say, what if you sent him to the Chiefs and he got to spend a year learning from Travis Kelce, playing alongside Travis Kelce, and then in 2027 he takes over as the full-time starting tight end number one. But I think physical development is still a thing that is happening for him. I think he'll be a great receiving threat in the NFL, but the concept of being a complete tight end is still something that's in the work. And also, we didn't get to necessarily see him be kind of like the highlight factory he was at Purdue because Ohio State didn't necessarily need that for him. So I would almost put him in the same boat as Carnell Tate. Not saying he'll be as good as Carnell Tate, but I think the production he might have in the NFL might vastly outweigh the production he was ever able to have as a Buckeye.
Stephen Means, as always, great stuff. Thanks so much for the time. Appreciate you joining us. Thanks very much, Stephen.
Anytime, guys. Thanks.
Stephen Means, Buckeyes beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Some insight on the Ohio State guys that have been drafted as well as some that will be drafted. Out in Berea, Todd Monkin met with the media after the first round pick, Spencer Fano. Here's Todd Monkin.
Well, we were jacked. I mean, to be able to move back 3 spots, pick up a third and a fifth, what a great job by Andrew, and get the player we targeted the whole time. And, I mean, we couldn't be any more excited and still have another pick later on tonight.
Jordan Tyson was still on the board when you guys made the trade down. So, obviously, that Spencer must have been your guys' number one.
No, we targeted Spencer.
With Spencer being the first tackle off the board, what was it that you thought separated him from the rest of this pretty deep tackle class?
As I said, his character was first. I mean, the way he's wired. I think the expectations that we'll have for him won't even match that he has for himself. And his athleticism, his toughness. I mean, when you want to start off the first your regime, I mean, when you talk about what you want, character, toughness, athleticism, he has it all.
There's a lot of speculation throughout the draft process that Spencer might move in inside to guard or center just because of the arm length. What did you see on film that alleviates the concerns about arm length at that tackle position?
Well, I think his athleticism and his toughness. I just think all of the above. I mean, do I think that's a part of it? Reach, an arm length, of course it is. But there's other things that are involved with it, other characteristics that go into it. I think he'd be an elite guard as well. I think he'd be elite center. I don't care where you put him. I think he's going to be an elite player.
Todd, you know what George Warhop wants in his lineman. Does Spencer Fano fit it better than the others?
I won't speak to where we had the other guys at. I'll just say that we were excited as heck to be able to get Spencer.
Andrew said a tackle's a tackle, but the fact that Spencer played left early on at Utah, is that important for you guys to see?
It's part of the equation, yes.
Utah teams, I mean, their physicality is sort of always been sort of their calling card. I mean, how much does that, that program DNA, do you see in Spencer? How much was that an attractive, part of that?
A big piece of it. You go all the way back to Urban Meyer and then Coach Whittingham. I mean, when you get a player from Utah, you get a player that's physical. They're going to practice physical. They're going to play physical. Their style, their expectations of their old line. So, again, we're fired up.
Would you still like to get a receiver pretty high in this draft if you can?
Sure. And we'd like to add, there's a number of areas we'd like to add to our team, that being one of them.
Were you guys at all surprised with how the board fell previous to your guys' pick?
I wouldn't say that. I think it fell pretty close within reason. As far as I could tell, being in there with Andrew and his group, it fell off the board the way it appeared to me that it was going to go.
Did you have Spencer in for a 30 visit? Because I know that was...
We did.
Okay.
We did.
What stood out during that visit?
Everything that I've already said. I mean, it's deep that, I'm...
You have Spencer Fano as your left tackle. Does it affect the movement of any other positions on your line that we saw the other day?
Not what we saw the other day was really who we had. With Elton being out, Titus being a little bit limited, and trying to put all the pieces together. Ultimately, once the draft is over and free agency and we go to camp, then we'll work on exactly where everybody's going to fit that was here the other day.
You came in and talked a lot of just about how it all kind of starts in the offensive line. You mentioned that, I know, at the Combine. With what the resources you guys spent in free agency to sort of bolster that group, now your first pick is a tackle. Was this kind of, when you came in and took this job, what you envisioned as you thought about kind of rebuilding this offense, that it would start with figuring out that group?
100%. Good. All right, thanks, guys.
Todd Monkin meeting with the media after the draft choice of Spencer Fano. Kind of interesting. You know what to expect from a guy you draft from Utah. Practices hard, physical. I love what I heard.
Yeah, it's one of those things when you look at like the 1-2 we were talking about with some of those guys, this is not an issue. So everything that both of us really like in terms of the physicality, the footwork, and I thought he made a really good point, and I thought Spencer really did a nice job earlier in terms of the long arms or the short arms. It can be taken out of context if you don't have great feet. If you have great feet and you're beating a guy to the spot, that negates those short arms. Fano is not only a great athlete, he kind of gives you both, right? So where Maui Noah for me gives you the mauler, Owiana inside gives you the mauler. Fano's a guy who's going to try to block you and knock you down, but he's also got really light feet. And when you get a guy who's versatile, when you say you can play guard, you can play center, you can play tackle, that's really a special lineman. And he can do all that very well. But more importantly, when you get it's like the receiver at Ohio State, like we talked earlier. When you get a guard, when you get an offensive lineman out of Utah, it's the practice habits. It's what you do every day. It's the callus you build. Really good pick. I think he's going to be outstanding really quickly for the Browns.
So we'll catch up. 3 picks have been made. Ruben Bain goes to Tampa Bay. Sadiq goes to the Jets. So Mekhi Lemon's still on the board. And now Blake Miller, the offensive lineman from Strongsville, goes off the board as well.
Well, 2 things happened. One, Ruben Bain is he slid. Once again, he was in my top 6. He was my game changer. So I would have taken him at 6. And the reason I say that, the reason he slid is arm length. Now, I had a number of pushback. The pushback was pretty great. There's some really smart people out there that tell you a guy like Ruben Bain can't be successful because of his arm length. When I turn on the tape, he's an absolute game destroyer. And he's a guy you can move down into the 3 technique. And in this age of offense in defense where guys jump in gaps, especially they're trying to win on first down to pass rush on 2nd and 3rd down. That's really the MO of the NFL right now. We're going to do everything we can to stop the run so we can rush the passer. He's great at it. Kenyon Sadiq, Tim Bielik was talking about his matchup. He's under a 4-4 guy. Tim talks about tight end success with their ability to run. Kenyon Sadiq is a matchup nightmare. And then Blake Miller, kid out of Strongsville. Again, right tackle, much better in pass protection than he is a run blocker right now. Has all the measurables. So he was a guy that was in my top 10 But one of those guys from 5 to about 15 with the tackles that have really good upside. Some of them are really good run blockers. Some of them are really good pass blockers. He's good at both. You see him here at Strongsville. Obviously comes from a really, really athletic family. You see him there. He's got really good torque. But once again, he's better in pass protection. You see him kick step in there. He can jump set you. He can also kick back. He's got really good movement skills. You see him here get to the second level. Once again, he's not a guy who's going to absolutely kill you all the time, but he does a really good job of getting to the second level and getting his hands on you. And a lot of times it comes down to taking the correct angles, understanding where you're going. Blake Miller does a great job of that. Again, Northeast Ohio kid. It's not shocking. So again, you're getting a really tough kid going to a system that they want you to be really tough. So good for that kid. Great for Northeast Ohio football. And again, really good football player with a really high upside as a right tackle.
Yeah, drafted by the Lions. Dan Campbell, love him. And now off the board, a defensive tackle, Caleb Banks, drafted by the Vikings.
Well, this is a measurement guy. Went to the Senior Bowl, absolutely dominated the Senior Bowl. He's in that 6'5", 6'6" range, 310 pounds, long arms, really, really good at everything he does. Really good pick by those guys.
We are going to step aside and take a quick time out. Lance Reisland and I will be back talking more about the picks as we get closer to pick 24 when the Browns make their second pick in the first round. You're watching Sports for CLE's Draft Night Special. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You got so much to do. It's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day. 'Cause it's fun all over the state. So come on.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
You got so much to do. It's got you feeling blue. Put a little play in your day. 'Cause it's fun all over the state. So come on. Great games wait for you and me. The Ohio lottery. Put a little play in your day. Put a little play in your day.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Try C, where futures begin.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
Sports4CLE Draft Night Special continues along with Lance Reisland. I'm Dave Bacon. So Monroe Freeland goes to the Panthers, and then the Eagles trade with the Cowboys. So the Eagles are picking 20, and the Cowboys drop back to 23. There's some later round picks with it.
Yeah, Monroe Freeling is a really interesting. You guys talking to a guy 6'7", 315, probably playing that 330 range. Really young kid. He doesn't have a ton of starts. And when you see him, there's things that just stick out to you. His athleticism. See him here at the left tackle. See, that's really much harder than it thinks. You got to twist, had to readjust. That's that lateral movement inside. You can see him kicking here. The ability to go down inside then kick back out. He's really good on screens. You're going to see him here get to the second level. Being able to block and position block on a safety is really, really impressive. He can run zone. You see him there attacking the hip and getting to the second level off that double team. Really impressive. Again, coming out of Georgia, he's going to be well coached. Here he is pulling on the counter, getting to the number one linebacker in the box, bringing that back on a counter play. So you see him in all these different types of runs, these different types of pass protection. Once again, him and Ian Ochoa, to me, Blake Miller's there too, but when you talk about just raw skills with the highest ceiling, without question, it's Freeling and Ian Ochoa to me.
Yeah, and so the Eagles have selected Mekhi Lemon, so they traded up. They get Mekhi Lemon. Of course, the expectation is after June 1st, A.J. Brown will be traded, so that makes sense.
Yeah, well, Mekhi Lemon's number one receiver on the board for me. Tremendously talented, best run after catch guy in this draft for me. Really, what he does, and you and I were talking at the break. I think all the skills are there. Run after catch, but he's tough. He's highly competitive. He's 5'11". He plays a lot bigger than that, and he's very good in 50-50 situations. You see him here on just a swing pass. That's just a little RPO swing pass, and he gets a big run. Now, that's not a 90-yard run, but it gets you a chunk play that you need. He's very good in the red zone. He can be a very good punt returner. You see him here. He does so many things well. He likes to play football. We talk about the passion all the time. This is a guy who likes to play. He is always wanting to be on the field. He's a great punt returner. He can kick return. But what I like is he can play inside, outside. Good, he's good on releases, but what he specializes is in run after catch. He is a run after catch. I'm seeing here, once he gets in the secondary, he's hard to tackle, thick lower body, really good selection. I was really pushing for the Browns here to go get him. Obviously, his talent speaks for itself. Now you got to think Omar Cooper or Casey Concepcion will be the guy for the Browns.
Yeah, and there's a couple more picks, so it'll be interesting again. The Cowboys traded back to 23, so again, Browns should get one of those wide receivers that you kind of thought about in that second group.
Well, here's the thing. It's going to come down to, this is, obviously with the guys now, is what do they think of Ced Tillman? And if they don't think highly, like I said, they're going to go get one of these longer guys. If they need they feel another touch guy, you got to think Casey Concepcion, Omar Cooper, or even Zach Branch, who a lot of people have higher. I know I have a little bit higher. His size is a concern. But again, in an offense that's based on matchup, size is a little bit overrated because you're just going to find a guy he can beat with his quickness. So we'll see what happens. But you got to imagine, you got to go get a playmaker, right? So last year we were talking about it, sitting right here talking about it, and they didn't do it. And the offense has not been good. They've addressed this offensive line now. Now they got to go, if you're trying to figure out who your quarterback is, and you're trying to develop a guy such as Shedeur Sanders, for example, you got to go out and get him some weapons so he can see what he can do. They've addressed this offensive line. They got to go get a playmaker.
So the Steelers are on the clock at 21. It'll be interesting to see. There's some thought they might take a wide receiver. They may take an offensive lineman.
Well, the good thing about and for the Browns, the good thing about the Steelers is they're not thinking like everybody else. The Ravens and the Steelers don't think like everybody else. So you won't be shocked if they go after like a guy like Jennings Dunker or Jake Slaughter because they believe in inside out. And those guys kind of fit that mold of nasty inside guys. The run game, I know they always want to get back to. Obviously, new leadership and things like that. But there's a Steeler way. They like to draft their own way. So you would think they would go after a receiver, but there are 3 guys now that fit the mold of what the Browns need, and you have to address those things. Once again, you see seeing Todd Monkin talk excites you because you feel like he has input and you feel like he's the guy that's kind of putting his stamp on things, and that's a good thing for the Browns. Hopefully they go out and address this skill position right now.
Yeah, and so Boston's another one, Denzel Boston.
He was in the top, like I said,
right.
for a long time. He was right there with Cornell Tate.
They must not have liked the testing because he kind of dropped after the combine a little bit.
Yeah, when you have those guys, here's the thing. There's so much. It's paralysis from analysis.
Yeah.
It's even myself. I've talked myself in and out of guys, in and out of liking or not liking a guy 1,000 times because you just watch so much film. And football is a game where you're going to make mistakes, and that's the reality of it. And if you don't watch entire games and you get caught up in watching clips and things like that, you're going to see things and you like certain things. So yeah, this is Boston's a really good player, and he has slid all the way down. And early on, you thought he was going to go top 20. So if they think they're going to go length, he might be the guy. Or Chris Brazil. You worry about at Tennessee what they did, but Chris Brazil is a really good player as well.
You look at Casey Concepcion. What are the concerns? There's the drops. How high is his upside? We saw something in social media where he basically said, "I'm the best receiver in this draft," and I want that. Don't get me wrong. I want that from my wide receiver. I want that from any of the players.
Well, I have him number 4 on my board, and I've had him there for a long time. The drops are a concern. That's the reality of it. But I think I think it's just the more that he's thinking about running with the ball. I think his upside is really, really good, and I think his upside is really, really good in this offense, just like with Mekhi Lemon. That's why I had him at number 1, and it worked out. Mekhi Lemon is when he went off the board, now you got to look at guys, who can I throw the ball to, and when they catch it, they can do things on their own. And as an offensive coordinator, you cannot be perfect all the time, and that's what the Browns have had to be. And so I need a guy that I throw a bubble screen because they got 8 in the box, and he makes a big run for me. You just saw the play from Mekhi Lemon. You don't always need a home run, but you'd like to get to second 8 once in a while. You'd like to get a 15-yard chunk. Browns don't have any of those. So for me, that's what Casey Concepcion. In this offense, his size doesn't matter to me. He's got to catch the ball, but Monkin will find matchups that he can win.
That's what I was going to ask you. Is he a guy that you can see winning one-on-one matchups?
Yeah, and when you think about this offense, the mindset has to transfer from an outside receiver, a running back in the backfield, to we're going to do whatever we have to do against a particular team, that this matchup. So it could be Casey Concepcion outside at the one receiver because they have a tall corner who does not do very well with shifty guys. They might put him in the backfield, motion him out because they want to get him lined up on a certain linebacker. They could put him in the slot because the slot nickel's big, Kyle Hamilton, who only struggles with sudden shifty guys. So it's more of a matchup thing than it is a position. This is a positionless offense, kind of like basketball is. You're just trying to find winnable matchups.
So is he the guy? If you were, who do you like better? Do you like him? Do you like Boston? Do you like Omar Cooper?
I'm going
with
with
the Browns.
I'm going Casey Concepcion. Both. I like him the best, and I think he's the best for the Browns. So it works out both. But you and I have been doing this for 3 or 4 years now, and I think every time we talk, what do the Browns need? We say we need a guy who can go get easy yards. I mean, if you look back and look at the records, we've probably said it over 100 times. There's no guy besides Lemon. This is a guy who is a very high-level run-after-catch guy. He's very, very good at it.
Punt return guy too?
Yeah, oh yeah, he can do it. He's a guy. Once again, you don't question his toughness. You don't question any of those things. That if you said a team that only has 5 wins, you cannot coach effort. You cannot coach toughness. That's who they're going. Fano fits that mold. This receiver, Cooper fits that mold. Boston fits that mold. But once again, they need a guy that, as an offensive coordinator, you always like those 70-yard touchdowns where you don't drop much. You just get it to the right guy. The best offensive coordinators get it to the right guy. Casey Concepcion does that for me. He gets me easy yards. You got to go get a playmaker. They don't have that guy. However, they might think Isaiah Bond's the guy. Then they go Boston or Brazil or Malachi Fields because they don't think Seth Tillman can do it. Who knows? But if I'm going touch guy, I'm going Concepcion. If I'm going outside guy, be Boston.
All right, so the Steelers take Max Yanchor with their pick in the first round. So he goes earlier than a lot of people thought.
Not surprising at all to me. I had him, he slid up all the way up the board. I had him on the same level as, so mine were, Maui Noah is moving down as a tackle, but still really good. So I had Fano, Maui Noah, and then I had Freeling and Yanchor together. Yanchor, he's a guy who is so talented physically. So, the Steelers, I just said it, they are the masters of taking guys they like. And this is not a reach at all for me. Because of his ability, he's only started football like a year ago, right? He hasn't played no football, and he played at a very high level against high-level competition. You're talking about a guy 6'6", 315 to 320 to 330, can move his feet, does a great job in the zone scheme, gap scheme, gets to the second level, good in pass protection, super athletic, is a guy who's super, super talented, but also super big. Right, so I think he's right there with Fano. I think he's right there with Freeling. I think he's right there with Maui Noah. He's in that category of those top 4 tackles. I had 4, then a little bit of a gap, but Yanchor does not surprise me at all, and does not surprise me it's the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, so now the Chargers are on the clock. Then we'll go to the Cowboys and then the Browns. So 3 picks. They're gonna have a pick of a pretty good wide receiver.
There's a really good wide receiver, and everybody talks about Tyson, Lemon, and Tate, and that's a real. They were the top 3 in my opinion. But of all the position groups, that was the closest from 3rd to 15. And so when you talk about this next tier of guys, one of these guys in the second tier will be better than one of these guys, and that's just the reality of it. And you hope for the Browns they can go out and get that guy. And for me, that's Casey Concepcion. I think he's a guy that is just so dynamic with the ball in his hands, and put him in positions to make plays. And the thing that I hear about Monkin all the time, he never talks scheme, which I love. He talks touches and points. And we all know different schemes, and we all know different routes and things like that, but the bright guy's got to touch it. So I'm going Casey Concepcion here. Would not be mad at Omar Cooper, but I think it's got to be one of those 2.
All right. If they don't go wide receiver, what else could you see him do?
Ooh, that's different. So now you're talking maybe Thyman, the safety out of Oregon. I think he's really talented. Eli Stowers, the tight end out of Vanderbilt. Oscar Delp, who I have at 70. I would love them to pick at 70. But once again, maybe they're a little higher on him because Monkin knows him. I think he's super talented. You can go any of these offensive linemen. You go Jake Slaughter. He's by far the best interior lineman. I had him actually ahead of Owana in terms of, I put the cigars and center together. Jake Slaughter's a guy who sets protection. He's an old soul in there as a young kid, and that really helps a young quarterback when you have a center that can do everything and you can kind of worry about reading. You don't have to set protection. So there's a lot of different angles they can go. I'd be shocked if they don't go receiver here. And once again, though, we were shocked last year when they they did different things. Yeah. So. You never know, but I really think it's got to be Casey Concepcion unless he goes off the board here.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. The one we were upset about was Schlesinger, and he ended up being Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Well, and it's one of those things, and when you go back to look at it, Schlesinger is a 1-2 guy.
Right.
So, there's a lot to be said about those. Those numbers don't measure. Now, obviously, when I saw him in his tree trunk legs and how big he was, okay, he makes sense. But really, he turned out, once again, that's why it's all a crapshoot. You're doing your best to evaluate. I really didn't even have him on my board last year. I watched him. I'm like, oh, he's a good player. But then you don't know the 1-2. And then you go watch him practice, you see why.
So the Chargers have taken Akeem Messidor, so the bookend to Ruben Bain, the other edge rusher.
Another guy, Jason Taylor coached these guys down at Miami. He was about 6'3", 260. This guy is extremely good off the edge. Now, again, a little bit undersized in terms of arm length and all that stuff, but there's certain guys that are outliers. And what I mean by that is the tape for me tells the story. Now we're not talking a guy who's 5'10", he's 6'3", 260. He's not little, but in NFL terms, he is almost somewhat. But he is so disruptive, and Jason Taylor did such a good job with him and Ruben Bain using their strengths. So a lot of times the in vogue thing in the NFL is long arming, where you're going to take those long arms and you're going to get it on the chest of that offensive lineman. And the other thing you can do is get the arms away. And if you don't have long arms, you want to work a swipe. And Jason Taylor has mastered the swipe with both Mesidor and Bain, and that's their go-to moves. They use a ghost move where they're going to fake a swipe and go underneath because they're great benders, and then they're going to swipe the arms away, so it doesn't matter how long their arms are. So really well coached. And again, turn the film on. Watch what Bain and Mesidor do to the Ohio State offensive line. Absolutely ruined the game. Could not get a snap off, could not block them at all. And that's pretty high-level competition.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jason Taylor, a kid that played at the University of Akron and then went on to a Hall of Fame career in Miami.
And also a guy who was undersized and had to do things his way. And there's a lot of, you talk about having an edge and being irritated. And, it's kind of those things that the one thing that, the world of analytics has taken over football, certain measurements, it does not measure want to. And that's really, you got to have the measurements to start, but you also got to have, this has got to be a passion. You got to like to practice. You got to like to lift weights. You got to like to eat right, take care of your body. All those things. Mesidor, Bain, those guys. They're those two. Jacob Rodriguez, the kid out of Texas Tech. I didn't care what their measurements were. They're just fun to watch. You just know they like playing football.
All right, so Cowboys are on the clock. They will pick. Conventional wisdom is they're going to do another defensive player. They took Caleb Downs, trade back. We'll see. If they go defense, they've already taken their safety.
Well, I think you got Jermod McCoy, the corner out of Tennessee, is really good. You got Peter Woods, who is just so talented, the kid out of Clemson. He's had it too hot and cold. I don't think it's an effort thing, but it's too hot and cold. It goes away too long for a guy who's 280, can play the defensive end, defensive tackle. That's a Jerry Jones kind of guy, though, because when you see him, the highlights are really high-level highlights out of Clemson. You got Chris Johnson, who I think is an outstanding corner out of San Diego State. The Thyman kid, obviously they don't need now. Maybe it's a Cade McDonald, the kid out of Ohio State, pure run stopper. And once again, if you're going out and you're trying to, the ultimate goal, in my opinion, in the NFL at this point in time in Power 4 college football is we're going to be very conventional on first down. We're going to win first down so we can be unconventional on second and third and rush the passer. So a guy like Cade McDonald now later in the first round gives you value because he's going to help you get to second and long. So maybe it's him. I would say if you're going to go tackle, maybe Jacob Rodriguez, maybe he comes up the board because of the sheer ability. Anthony Hill out of Texas is another linebacker connection to Texas. I know they saw him play. He's a thumper. He's probably the best thumper linebacker tackle to tackle in this draft. So linebacker or a run-stopping defensive tackle, it would be the call.
Yeah, and again, it would be shocking if it's a wide receiver because you have CeeDee Lamb, you have George Pickens playing on and they came out and said he's going to play on the franchise tag. They're not going to work out a long-term deal. But you've got a lot of money tied up in the wide receiving position.
Well, and you got rid of Micah Parsons. You got to feel you're in the window if you're the Dallas Cowboys, whatever that window is. You got Dak Prescott. You got an elite offense. Your offensive line's pretty good. You got to figure out a way to slow the other offense down. Obviously, you can't fill all the holes, but you've started that. And then maybe, like I said, getting always some of the most boring picks are just those defensive linemen that don't have a lot of stats that are so important to a defense. They just take up blockers, let linebackers run free. Maybe it's a little early for that. If that's the case, maybe Anthony Hill, the linebacker out of Texas, he's super talented.
Yeah, and again, so Cowboys, then Browns. Casey Concepcion, huh? Are you going to talk me into him?
Well, here's the thing, but your concerns are real. And, once again, it's the idea of, can he eliminate those catches? And for me, I just see so much run after catch that I'm saying that he's going to figure this and be a natural ball catcher. Now, if that is really the case and the Browns are thinking like you, Omar Cooper's not like a settle. For me, those are 1 and 1A. Those guys are. I think what you get out of Casey Concepcion though is you get the ability to. He's going to take it once in a while. He's going to get you a big chunk quickly.
So you got high risk, high reward.
Yeah, and once again though, if those drops, there's just way too many drops and way too many drops on easy throws. But it's so fun to watch him when he catches the ball. And as an offense coordinator, you just think, well, we haven't done a lot. It's tough. So. Yeah, I think he's the guy. Once again, I would say 80% Casey Concepcion. I'll go 20% Omar Cooper here with the 24th pick.
So the Cowboys take edge rusher Malachi Lawrence from Central Florida.
So Malachi Lawrence, really talented guy. Again, had a great offseason. He is a pass rush specialist. Really going to have to work on his run stopping, setting the edge. So he's not a great edge setter, but I'll tell you what he can do. He can absolutely get after the passer. You're talking 6'4", 6'5", about 255, 260 pounds. He's a guy that you see, he plays in a 2-point stance, he plays in a 3-point stance at times. But what he does best is he plays with a tremendous motor and is a tremendous athlete. This is a Jerry Jones pick because he's got really good measurements, but he's so disruptive. And he's been disruptive against really good teams, against really good tackles, consistently disruptive. Not surprising at all. I had him going day 2, early day 2, but not surprising at all. This kid is really talented. And again, another defensive piece to help that offense. That offense is going to score a bunch of points.
So Browns are on the clock now to make their second of their 2 first-round picks. This is the one they acquired from the Jacksonville Jaguars. It'll be interesting to see. Pretty much all of the second-level wide receivers are there.
You know, if you'd have told me at 24, they're Casey Concepcion and Omar Cooper, excuse me, set him 7th. If you would tell me they were being available, there's no way. I would say no way. I just think things happen in the draft where teams have needs. I'd be shocked, absolutely shocked that this is not Casey Concepcion and Omar Cooper. But I was shocked last year, and I didn't show it. I will show it if if the Browns don't go skill here. I'm just not sure what they're doing or what they're thinking. Maybe a trade. But right now, going out to camp, there's just they got to have higher level. When you watch the defensive practice, I try to split it up. Mm-hmm. The defensive level of talent is night and day better than the offense level of talent.
And here's the thing. If you hired Todd Monkin and you don't give him any skill position players, why'd you hire Todd Monkin?
You're setting him up for failure.
Yeah. And I get he needs an offensive line, so you got Spencer Fano.
And you addressed it. You went out and got a bunch of guys that fit your mold, and you have high hopes in DeJuan Jones and Elton Jenkins, very versatile. But at some point in time, Tim Bielik, Dan Labby, we were talking the other day, at some point in time, because I'm an inside-out guy, but you and I have talked about the ability to get easy yards. And regardless of how good you are up front, and they will make these guys better if they're better up front. But at some point in time, you have to have a guy that gets you out of jail.
Yeah.
You have to have a guy that gets you easy stuff when things aren't going well, when you're having trouble blocking a defensive tackle, when you can't, when the other defensive coordinator does a nice job, you go, you know what, I got a guy who's better than you, and get him the ball in space. The Browns don't have that. And if you don't have that, you make them go 12 plays. You go 12 plays, you are just increasing your chances for a turnover.
Right. And it makes your quarterback better. It'll make Quinshawn Judkins better.
Absolutely.
It'll make Jerry Jeudy better. Jerry Jeudy needs somebody to take the attention of the defense away from him.
Yeah, and so all of a sudden now you've increased the run game, right? Now you throw the ball better. Well, let's play nickel. Well, if you play nickel, now Junkins has got a later box.
Right.
You play regular personnel because you're running the ball better. Then who's covering Fannin? That's going to be a linebacker or a tight end. So there's certain things that Monkin can do. He doesn't need all the pieces like Kevin did because Kevin ran a system-based. But you got to have some pieces, and and I know he's going to maximize some of these guys better. I heard Andrew Berry talking about some of these guys not being developed. They will develop some of these guys. I really believe that. But you still need guys who are more talented than the other guys. As every good football coach will tell you, the best coaches have better players. It's really simple. We all do the same stuff. You got to have a good plan, and you got to have better guys who are better.
All right, let's for a minute assume it isn't a wide receiver. Do you think it's the safety from Oregon?
I would say that's the next best player for me. It would be I would say him or Eli Stowers. I'm really big on Eli Stowers. I think he's an outstanding talent. Most people have him in the second round, late first. I think he's outstanding, and he's not as great in a system base, but really a matchup issue in a matchup offense. So I think he'd be maximized with Monkin as well. But if they're not going there, then I would go Thyman. But Thyman's not, the reason that Downs became so intriguing to me is because of the Delpa thing next year. And I'm learning about like who you got to pay and you only have so much money and things like that. So, I would actually wait on the safety because I think Bud Clark is going to be available late day 2 into day 3 out of TCU, and I think he's outstanding. So I think it's got to be, if they don't go Thyman, then maybe they go, is there another offensive lineman? Do they go Jake Slaughter? I'll never argue with going inside out if you think that you can maximize your players a little bit better. Because if you're better up front, all your skill guys are better. If you stink up front, your skill guys are worse. I mean, it's really simple, but I think the Browns have done a good job of addressing your offensive line. They picked up 4 guys. They picked up a guy. Let's see him go get a skill guy and go make some plays.
So Browns getting ready to pick their second of the first 2-round picks. Again, this is the pick they acquired from Jacksonville. And the expectation we have is that it's a wide receiver, and it is Casey Concepcion from Texas A&M.
Yeah, this is really not overthinking it. And there is understand the drops. I understand some of the concerns with size and stuff like that, but this is a lightning in a bottle. This guy is electric when he catches the ball. Punt returner. The thing, details matter in football. And one of the things that I've noticed with the Browns going out to practice this week is they were working on special teams already. And you see him here on a punt return. So there's a touch for him. You can get him on punt return. You can put him in the slot. You can run bubble screens with him. He's also very good. You're going to see him here catching the slant, take it to the house. This is a play that I broke down all over the field. And once again, he catches the ball naturally. It's a concentration things you got to focus on. But you cannot teach the things that he does. And this is obviously Makai Lemon was number 1 on my board. I had Casey Concepcion at number 4. So he was right after that top 3. And the reason why is because I value run after catch. And there's no one, him and Makai Lemon are the best run after catch guys in this draft. They have their limitations. They're not as big and all that kind of stuff. I don't care with Todd Monkin. I want guys who can make plays without everybody having to be perfect. And go watch the Notre Dame game. This will be the 50-50 ball that he wins against a really good secondary from Notre Dame. He's a high-level competitor, short area burst, can run that quick game. He can loosen the box. He's going to do a bunch of things. You see him here, just shifty. So this is not necessarily a 60-yard run or catch and run, but it's a 15-yard chunk play. Great pick here. Browns definitely got better on day 1 of the draft.
Is he, when we think of Todd Monkin, we think of Zay Flowers.
Mm-hmm.
It's a guy he kind of used and got a lot of production from.
Well, my comp was Zay Flowers. So every once in a while you get it right. So, and once again, because it's the idea when Zay Flowers came out of Boston College, he's little, what can he do against NFL guys? And it's what I like about Todd Monkin and guys like Sean McVay, it's not he's undersized, these are his weaknesses. It's elite traits that make him NFL players. What makes Casey Concepcion an elite NFL prospect is his ability to get the ball in space and get yards. It's not releases, it's not the catch point. He does those well, but his elite trait is when he catches it, he's really hard to tackle. So for me, that's a no-brainer. And if you said you got your tackle, you got your skill. Now I think I wouldn't mind because I still think guys like Malachi Fields, Boston, these guys are sliding. I don't mind if they do that. There's also other linemen you want to go get. You want to go get a center. You got one of the top centers that in the last 3 or 4 years in Jake Slaughter. You got edge guys through the roof, Kendrick Falk. You got a bunch of edge guys. What's the situation with Myles Garrett? Jacob Rodriguez is on the board. You need depth at linebacker. We've seen that over the years. Linebackers, they go down. They're violent guys. I know you picked up Quincy Williams, but again, stacking talent is what wins. And Browns have done that today. For me, this is an outstanding day 1 in terms of not just filling needs, but taking the best players available as well.
All right, let's take a look. Let's recap what we have seen from the draft so far. Browns make their pick at 24. It's Casey Concepcion. Started out, it was not a surprise. His quarterback who went number 1 overall was Mendoza. Then it's Bailey, Love. Cornell Tate a little earlier at 4. Then Reese to the Giants at 5. DeLand, the cornerback, at 6 as the Chiefs trade up to get him. Styles to the Commanders Tyson to the Saints. You look at the next grouping, Fano, Browns pick at 9 after they trade back. Malioga goes to the Giants. Downs goes to the Cowboys. Then Proctor, Ty Simpson, quarterback, goes to the Rams. Inoa goes to the Ravens. Bain to the Buccaneers. Sadiq to the Jets. And then the Lions take Blake Miller from Strongsville. Monroe Freeling goes to the Panthers. Mekhi Lemon lasts until 20. Eagles go and get him. And reportedly, Eagles are going to trade A.J. Brown, so he slots right in. Eonshore, who you and I both like, goes to the Steelers. Messidor to the Chargers. Lawrence to the Cowboys. And the Browns take wide receiver Casey Concepcion.
So when I look at, when you look at those picks, a couple of things stand out. First of all, and I always feel like certain guys, I love how the Steelers and Ravens always draft. And then you got guys like Sean McVay that always seem like they're playing chess, right? We're all playing checkers because I really like Ty Simpson, and my only holdback was I just think he needs time, right? So he goes to a guy where he's going to learn under a Pro Bowl, he's going to learn under a Hall of Famer and a really good football coach. And then he could be like, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you go, man, what a great pick that was. And then you go to the Eagles with Mekhi Lemon. That's what's stacking talent. And I think the Eagles do the best job in the NFL of stacking talent. If you think about like their defensive line, for example. So you lose a guy, and what I'm learning about more than the film is where the money goes and how much money you have. And that's going to happen. You're going to lose guys because they're going to get big contracts somewhere else. You're going to lose guys to injuries. You're going to lose guys. The guys are going to get older. But teams that stack talent bring the next guy in. And so now, the Eagles are going to lose a really good receiver. They bring another guy in. And that's kind of that's where you want to get to. And now for the Browns, now they're by no means is everything filled. But now you got a really good tight end. You feel like you got a really good receiver. You feel like you got another really good receiver in Jerry Jeudy. You feel like like I said, you addressed your offensive line. You have a stud tailback who gets after it. You feel like you got a couple quarterbacks. One's getting back healthy, and you have another that you think we pretty high hopes for. So at least there's no, they're not great, but there's no like glaring holes, right? Now you go out and get good players. And if those players that you thought were going to be starters aren't good, bring in the next guy. That's how it works. I think the Eagles are the best at it.
All right, so Spencer Fano, Browns pick at 9 in the first round, taking questions from the Cleveland media on a conference call.
Hey, what was your reaction when you heard the call from the Browns, and what's it been like in these last 10, 15 minutes?
Oh my gosh! I was sitting there, and then I saw a FaceTime call from Megan Rock, and I just started crying. that was my initial reaction, and then I'm just so excited to get to work, man. I'm so excited to get to work, and I'm so grateful for everybody there believing in me. So I'm ready to get to work.
Hey, Spencer, I know you mostly played right tackle, but you did play left tackle to start your career at Utah. Just talk about the potential of playing either side of the line of the line, and also just the challenges that go from going right to left or left to right.
Shoot, for me, I've been blessed to. I mean, in practices, even when I was at right tackle, I took reps at left. The challenge really is, I've always told everybody I feel more comfortable where I'm taking the reps. So I'm just going to be taking, based on what I've been told, I'm going to be taking strictly left tackle reps to get ready for the season.
Hey, Spencer, congratulations. We know Todd Monkin was just in here. He mentioned you came in for a top 30 visit. Just what were your interactions like with the Browns during the pre-draft process? And what are you most excited about playing in Todd Monkin's offense?
My pre-draft process with the Browns, I feel like, have been really special. I mean, I drove there straight from Indy, straight from the combine, and I was the first person in there. So I feel like that alone told me how much how they viewed me, and I feel really, really blessed. I'm so excited to be able to play for Coach Monkin and get to work.
Hey, Spencer, what are your impressions of Shedeur Sanders, and what will be blocking for him for the next 5 years or so?
I'm excited. Oh, I'm excited. Me and him, we went 1-1 in our college career. I won one to him and I lost the last one. So I'm really excited.
Spencer, what do you make of stepping into a role that was filled by Hall of Famer Joe Thomas for so many years? What do you know about Joe? And are you looking forward to sort of maybe being mentored by him and coached up by him a little bit?
Yes. I mean, this is pretty. I'm pretty starstruck to not hear him, not be able to meet him. Whenever anyone asks me who the greatest tackle of all time is, I say Joe Thomas. Yeah, I know. I feel like I know a good amount about him. It was 10 years where he didn't miss a snap. So to be able to learn from, and then not only 10 years, but not missing a snap, playing the way he did. I'm really, really grateful and excited to be able to learn from him.
Spencer, just wanted to ask about making the move for you. Todd, we heard from Todd Monkin, and he said they want you to obviously be the left tackle. So making that move back after you played there as a true freshman, number one, and I guess what did you make throughout this draft process of all the discussion about, you possibly moving to the interior and being very flexible? What did you make of all of that?
I've just been ready. In my training, I've been taking snaps at every position because depending on the team that chose me, I could have been any one of them. So I'm super grateful to be the left tackle for Cleveland Browns. I mean, I'm pumped. I'm so pumped.
Anybody else?
Spencer, I'm sorry if this was asked. I just walked in the room. I just wanted to know your feelings about playing left tackle again. I'm sorry if it's a repeat question.
Oh, no, it's okay. I'm excited. I mean, I only left tackle. I only changed positions because that's what my team needed me to do. So I'm really excited to be back there. And oh my gosh, I'm pumped. I'm pumped.
Spencer Fano, who was the Browns' first-round pick, 9th overall. Like the answer. I left tackle because my team needed me to.
Yeah, and he's a guy, when you watch him, when people talk about the ability to go from right to left tackle or left tackle, and I just think Andrew Berry said it wrong. I don't think he necessarily meant like everybody can do that, because we've seen that everybody can't. But the type they want, Fano is that type. So when they say versatile, it's a positive because they're talking about guys with light feet. They're talking about guys who have a demeanor. They're talking about guys who like to play football. And it's really not about anything else but just guys who like to play football. So for me, this makes a ton of sense. Love his attitude. Love watching the film. Really good player. And, you once again, you're very critical of people, make a GMs. Andrew Berry, I've been critical of him. You got to, the idea of it doesn't mean they're going to be great, but the attack they've taken, they've addressed where they're really poor. They've gotten some high-level players. Now they got to start stacking talent at certain positions.
All right, so where do you think they look in the second round?
Well, now you got to start thinking about where's my value? I still think they need another lineman. So if there's a guy like Jake Slaughter, Connor Liu, Logan Jones out of Iowa, Jennings Dunker out of Iowa. Those Iowa linemen are like the Utah linemen and like the Ohio State receivers. They're going to be well schooled. Bud Clark, as we get into day 3, he's a stud. You still might have Boston, Malachi Fields. Do you need another receiver? Jacob Rodriguez is still on the board. Do you trade up and get a guy who's high level? I have Jacob Rodriguez as a second round grade. Do you go get him early if he's there? Because he's, so there's guys out there. Now they got to build depth. And the way you build depth is you don't say, well, we need another tackle. Now you've addressed everything. Doesn't mean it's perfect. Now you go find the best players, who you think are the best players.
All right, let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hi, Dave. This is Glenn from Berea calling. And I'm wondering if you could see the Browns taking a cornerback on day 2. Denzel Ward is still playing at a top level, but perhaps Andrew Berry wants to get ahead of the curve and look down the future and have someone ready when Denzel starts to get a little bit older or in case of emergency. I also think there's any chance the Browns trade back and then take someone no one here in Cleveland's been talking about. Thanks for taking my call and for all your hard work. Bye.
As always, appreciate all the voicemails. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, the guy that I kind of like, and he's really undersized, is D'Angelo Pons.
Well, D'Angelo Pons, his best strength is his worst enemy. Because he's 5'9", under 200 pounds, he's violent. And when you're violent, you don't survive very long in the NFL because everybody's so big. And he's not afraid of anybody. He's also got a 43.5-inch vertical leap. So he's a guy that's in my top 10. But if you look at guys like Chris Johnson out of San Diego State, I haven't met two. People have him a little bit lower. The guy who's best in man coverage is Avion Terrell. He's my #1 sticky corner, I call it. His ability, he's not great in zone, but put him out there in man coverage, he's as good as it gets. He'll be around late day 2 into day 3. Thaddeus Dixon, corner out of North Carolina. We were talking to Stephen Means earlier about David Imbignosin. He was talking about the guys there's a bunch of guys who are 5'11" to 6'1" who are really good corners. D'Angelo Pons, you brought up. Traden Stukes, a kid out of Arizona. There's a Jared McCoy, obviously Tennessee. Colton Hood out of Tennessee. Both Tennessee kids are really tough. There's a bunch of really good corners if they want to get into day 2, into day 3. And that's what the Browns have always done well. Browns have always got those corners and safeties. They know what they want in measurements, size, demeanor. Obviously, Denzel Ward's getting a little older. Emerson is in a weird situation. I'm with you. I think one of the most competitive guys in college football is D'Angelo Pons. I worry about availability because guys who are fearless are their own worst enemies, and he's absolutely fearless.
Lance Reisland and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We will continue with Sports for CLE Draft Night Special for Round 1. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
You got so much to do. It's got you feeling blue. Put a little flag in your day. 'Cause it's fun all over the state. So come on. Great games wait for you and me. The Ohio lottery. Put a little flag in your day. Put a little flag in your day.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
You got so much to do. It's got you feeling blue. Put a little flag in your day. 'Cause it's fun all over the state. So come on. Great games wait for you and me. The Ohio lottery. Put a little flag in your day. Put a little flag in your day.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Try C, where futures begin.
The Greater Cleveland Sports Hall of Fame celebrates the star athletes and notable sports figures who were born or have made their home in Greater Cleveland. It tells the story of discipline, commitment, perseverance, sportsmanship, and excellence in achievement. It encourages and inspires those who believe in sport and its direct impact on the well-being of our community. Go to clevelandsportshall.com or follow us on Twitter at GCLE Sports HOF for more details.
Sports4CLE's Draft Night Special continues along with Lance Reisland. I'm Dave Bacon. Let's welcome in Jacob Roach to the show. Jacob, appreciate you joining us. What are your thoughts, Fano and Concepcion?
So I gave a B- to Fano just for the simple fact that I liked 3 other tackles ahead of him. But Fano is one of those guys where I just feel like he's the kind of player, like when you talk about just going out and drafting good football players and figuring out where they'll play later. I think he's kind of that classic player because I think he's a really good athlete. He's really smart. He's played both sides of both sides of the offensive line. He wasn't great at left tackle in 2023, but like that was a few years ago. I think he's aggressive. I think he's kind of a mauler. He's really smart, really experienced, and the footwork is really nice. I think he can survive over there. I understand that the concerns with his length might mean he may end up having to kick it, potentially the guard or center down the line. But I feel really good about his floor to where maybe it's not at tackle, but I do think that Spencer Fano, one way or another, will be successful in the NFL. And I have no problem taking players that I feel that way about. But you get to the Casey Concepcion pick, that's an A for me, man. Like the Browns need easy buttons. And that's what Casey is as a pass catcher. Just he can take a 2-yard route into a 65-yard gain in a heartbeat. He's a dynamic punt returner. It's just he's a natural separator, and you're trying to build the position around the quarterback because you're not really sure who your quarterback's going to be. Well, you got to give him, an outlet, a guy that can help him and take the pressure off of him. And I think Casey Concepcion can do that really, really well.
We've talked about him a lot. My concern with the drops. What are your thoughts there?
So a couple things with that is when I watched the drops, I thought it was more concentration drops than technical drops. Like, I don't think but Jerry Jeudy, sometimes we'll see him try to catch the ball with his body, and that leads to a lot of his drops. Concepcion, it's him looking to create after the catch because he is such a dynamic playmaker. And I also throw out there that 45% of Casey Concepcion's targets were catchable, inaccurate from Marcel Reed last year. So I think some of those drops sometimes was his athleticism, being able to get his hands on not very well thrown footballs. So I do put that caveat there. But yeah, 10% drop rate's not great, but I do think the issue is coachable.
All right, Jake, where are you going? Pick 39, second round, buddy. Who do you got? Who do you like? And what areas do you think the Browns need to attack here now as I don't want to say everything is filled, but now they have addressed some needs. And where would you go with pick 39, and where would you kind of head moving forward in this draft?
I would love if Emmanuel McNeil-Warren is there, the safety from Toledo, because I think they need kind of a potentially, Mike Rutenberg's talked about the having the versatility of a guy like Grant Delpit. And if you can have multiple of those guys, and Grant Delpit's contract is expiring as well after this year, and he could be a potential replacement there. And if you don't go with McNeil-Warren, I do think you need to address the slot one way or another. Maybe it is a D'Angelo Ponce from Indiana, who is probably getting picked right now as I say this, because that's usually how it works with me. But, I really think that addressing the nickel corner, nickel defender at somewhere. I'd love to see him go center one day too, somewhere, just for someone down the road, because I know they've got that already taken care of. Depending on who's there, maybe you look tight end, because they're all still kind of on the board. I wouldn't mind a second tight end there at 39. But I think my focus would be kind of in the defensive backfield, maybe with maybe with any kind of a slot defender, at least with that first pick.
Who do you like better? I've kind of been torn. I really like at center. I love Jake Slaughter, Connor Lew, but I really like Logan Jones as well. Who do you like and why of those three?
Connor Lew's number one for me. Yeah, like I like Connor Lew a ton. Yeah, you got to deal with the fact that that injury happens in October, but like you got Elton Jenkins, so you're not like worried about rushing him out there. I just think Connor Lew is so smart and so technically refined. Like he's got a good power profile and he's a good athlete, but he's not gonna like overwhelm you with elite physical traits. But you just feel so good about his understanding of the game, him making the adjustments at the line of scrimmage to help his quarterback. And his ability to just be where he is when he's supposed to be. I love the way he passes people off. Like he's always looking for work and he knows, oh, my guard's got this guy. I need to go over here and help this guy, that kind of thing. So I like all three of the guys, but I think Connor Lew, I watch him he was making these adjustments and like really like taking on a lot at the center position when he was still a teenager. Like when he was still 19 years old at Auburn, like he stepped on the field right away and you thought he was a grizzled veteran on the collegiate level. So if it was me, I'd love to get Connor Lew, especially because you got Elton Jenkins and you can let that guy get healthy since he did have that injury in October.
All right, if the Browns double up at wide receiver, who are you looking at? And if you want to go in the third round, go ahead and do that as well.
There's a couple of guys that I really like. I like Skylar Bell if you're going to wait a little bit later on, the UConn wide receiver. He might go in the next round, in the second. It might go into the third. I'm trying to bring up my rankings right here just so I don't miss anybody here for wide receiver. A guy that's interesting, I think, for me, looking at my, yeah, that's great. This is great podcasting. I'm really great at this, you guys. Elijah Surratt, that's what I was looking for. Elijah Surratt kind of in the next day. Just if you're looking for a Mr. Reliable chain mover, the other Indiana wide receiver, because you got the dynamic playmaker. Elijah Surratt's a guy, like you need 8, he gets 9. You need 7, he gets 8. Whatever it is. And I think having dependable pass catchers who are always going to be in the right place in the right time can make your quarterback's job easy, especially with KC Concepcion. So him or Malachi Fields, I think the wide receiver from Notre Dame's another big-bodied wide receiver, kind of a different ilk of than what they got with KC Concepcion, is kind of those bigger, more physical guys that are more reliable. I'd love to see that. I do absolutely think at least at some point they need to double down, but Malachi Fields from Notre Dame, Elijah Surratt, Indiana, and then Skylar Bell from UConn would be the guys I'd love to see.
All right, I'm really high on Oscar Delp. I also really like Michael Trigg, the kid out of Baylor. Of those two, who do you like better, and who would you take? And is there anybody else you like at the tight end spot that maybe no one really talks about?
I want Oscar Delp like I want to win a lottery. Like that is where I'm at. I'm like an Oscar. I think I have him tight end 3 overall on my board, and it's just I can see him as a perfect like third round guy just because. And people are going to go, well, look at the production. He only had like 700 career receiving yards. You go watch that tape, man. He blocks his butt off. Like that dude is a tenacious blocker. Really gets in. Really is a physical. That's what they used him pretty much. He didn't get to run a lot of routes at Georgia. He was in line almost all the time, and they kind of need that to. Yeah, I know they got Jack Stoll, but they kind of need that with Harold Fannin. But I also think he's a really good athlete. I mean, when I watch him run routes, if you put a linebacker on Oscar Delp and he's running vertically down the seam, yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that. Oscar Delp's going to win that scenario. And I think his size and athletic ability at the leap, the explosion, his ability to high point the ball in the red zone is a really big weapon. And I think just he can go line up in the slot if you want him to, but he also gives you that ability to just put Harold Fannin wherever it creates the best mismatch because he can play in line because that's what he was used at most at the next level.
All right, if we give you one more offensive lineman in this draft, where are you going with it?
If it's not Connor Lew at center from Auburn, I kind of really like Jennings Dunker from Iowa, like the right tackle. I think he moves into guard at the next level. But if you're talking about getting like a butt kicker, kind of like you did with Spencer Fano in the first place, you get him as the future right guard. I think he'll kick in, but like I just think and I love the hair. I mean, we got to get a mullet on the.
Yeah, it's a great mullet, no doubt. It's a great mullet.
Yeah,
for sure, it's a great mullet.
That's why. I have no analysis. It's just the mullet. But no, I just really think I love the effort and just the heart, the power profile, and just the mentality and the motor that Jennings Dunker has. And, you know, he's got to make that change inside, but you've got some of those other veterans that can give him that time. So if I'm not taking Connor Lew, the center from Auburn, I think Jennings Dunker from Iowa would be the guy I'd take.
Jacob Roach, as always, great stuff. Appreciate you making some time and joining us. Thanks very much, Jacob.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
All right, you too. Jacob Roach, his thoughts on the draft. It's kind of interesting. You know, the nickel corner is an interesting one.
Well, it is. You know, the nickel corner is always interesting to me because it's, you know, are you going to get a bigger guy, you know, like a Martin Emerson, for example? People ask if he came back, would he be a good nickel corner? It depends on, you know, if a team is in 12 personnel, he's a great nickel corner because he's a bigger guy, can cover a tight end, can be a C-D gap, run fit guy. But then if you're facing a little bit more 11 personnel where that third, you know, that slot is going to be a receiver, then you want a guy like D'Angelo Pons. But remember, what makes that position so tough, especially in a one high hat, is that guy has run fits. And if you're a guy who has run fits, you know, once again, like a guy like D'Angelo Pons, he is going to make whoever he plays for very, very happy. The only time he won't make you happy is because he knocks himself out. I mean, when you watch his film, he is fun to watch, but at times he gets himself into trouble because he's so physical. But that nickel corner is very, very interesting because you have to do a lot of things. You got to be able to cover like an outside guy, but you also have run fits. You're also covering tight ends at times. You're covering backs out. It's a tough, really tough, unique position.
All right, so round one closing down. Omar Cooper Jr. just selected by the Jets late in the round. Denzel Boston's still on there. Let's take a look at the day 2 picks. So they will be picking second round, they'll pick 7th. Third round, they'll pick 6th and 10th as they picked up that extra third round pick in the trade back, moved back 3 spots, still got Spencer Fano. But so 7th in round 2, 6th in round 3, 10th in round 3 as well. So 3 more picks. I think it's top 107 after they finish that one. And it'll be interesting if Denzel Boston is there. Are you looking at him at 39 if he's still sitting there?
Oh, absolutely. So you got high-level guys, and that I have in my top 25. You talk about a linebacker, Anthony Hill out of Texas, Kendrick Falk, an edge guy out of Auburn, tremendously talented. Peter Woods, inside guy, McCoy, Hood, the corners. You got Jacob Rodriguez, who is my favorite film breakdown this year. When you turn on the film, you talk about 1-2, you talk about a Rutenberg guy. Jacob Rodriguez, one of the most instinctual linebackers I've watched on film. Not that you need linebacker, obviously, but once again, you are stacking talent. So if something happens to a linebacker, you're not getting that drop-off. Something's going to happen to a linebacker. That's what the NFL is. So, but yeah, I think the idea of Boston, and a guy that didn't run really well, and I don't care, is Malachi Fields. I actually like Malachi Fields more than I like Boston. It's close. But Boston's a guy, you know, again, he was in the top 4 or 5 conversation. Something happened with either the testing, but once again, when you watch the film, he's talented. So he might be a guy you go get at 39 for sure.
It'll be interesting to see. I kind of feel like they need another receiver fairly early.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, there's the good thing, like you said about this draft, is I still think Casey Concepcion, as good as he is, he's even a better fit with the Browns because he's a matchup guy. But you're still looking for what you want Ted Tillman to be. That's really what you're looking for. You're looking for Boston, Chris Brazil, the kid out of Tennessee, Malachi Fields. You're looking for that Ted Hurst out of Georgia State. The big, long guy gives you red zone stuff. I will be really honest with you. I'm not sure if any of those guys physically are as good as Ted Tillman. Yeah. When I watched Ted Tillman practice, I purposely went the other day in practice. I purposely went and stood by him. When I walked by and kind of almost brushed shoulders, first of all, I couldn't believe how big Bond's gotten physically. But then you stand next to Tillman, I remember just shaking my head going, I can see why, first of all, the production hasn't been there. There's been injuries. But I can also see when you watch him practice, he practices hard. And what a physically gifted guy is. You can see why they're like, we can't give up on this guy. It's just frustrating because he's not playing at that level quite yet.
So, all right, 39. Assuming, and Woods got drafted a little bit, pick or two ago, so Woods is off the board. Who are you looking at 39?
Well, I would say right now I'm looking my favorite player. I would say two guys really stand out to me. One we just talked about would be Boston, right? The other would be Jacob Rodriguez. And I don't think you can have enough football players. And people always say, what does that mean? There's some guys who like to play football and they're good at it. There's some guys who love it. There's some guys who love to practice. There's just guys out there that love to do these things. And for me, that's Jacob Rodriguez. And I don't think it hurts to have another guy in that room. You know, the other day, the vocal leader out there was Quincy Williams, and it allows Schlesinger, for me, you know, as good as Schlesinger was, he was Rookie of the Year, I think he had so much on his plate. I think he's going to be better this year with Quincy Williams because some of that leadership stuff will be taken away from him, and now, you know, Williams could do it instead of Schlesinger. But I don't think it hurts to have another young backer in there, and especially the talent you can get from him. He is really talented, instincts through the roof.
So the Titans trade and draft Kedrick Falk. So another edge rusher goes off the board as they're wrapping up the first round.
Yeah, this is stud kid out of Auburn. A lot of people think he's a boomer bust guy. So he's one of these guys has all the physical tools. Sometimes the numbers didn't match. Sometimes the production didn't match. Now Auburn had a lot of issues and teams tried to really block him because he's that talented. But there is absolutely no question about the skill set. This is a guy who runs really well. This is a guy who understands spacing. This is a guy who is really like the typical SEC end. 6'5", 6'6", 250, runs well, long arms, does all of it well, just doesn't do it all the time. If he's a guy who had the relentless motor, he'd have been way early in the first round.
So let's go back to Fano and Concepcion. What did the Browns add to their roster today?
Well, you got two things that you and I have talked about. So they've fulfilled our wish over 3 years, right? They got a guy in space who is going to make it easier to run an offense. And what I mean by that is that everybody talks about the turnovers, and everybody talks about, and I'm going to use a play from last year with Shedeur Sanders to Sampson on the swing pass against the Raiders that went for 66. That was a swing pass. Nothing fancy, Mike blocking up front, really, really simple scheme, throw it out there in space, let a guy run. Sampson did that pretty well when Shedeur Sanders on the field. You need a receiver to do that as well. So now you got a guy who can create those easy yards for you. Fano's a guy that I think I had him number one on my board. So I thought very highly of him because of his light feet, right? So when he played all three positions, the reason he could do that is because he has light feet. Love his tenacity. Listen to him talk. I love that like young kid, like fighting for a job. And I say it all the time, and I mean this. When I watch Joe Petonio, there's a reason guys are all pro and Hall of Famers. They love to do it. And Fano, now you've addressed the offensive line. Doesn't make it good yet, but you also can't be negative about it because they went out and addressed it. Now they got to go play. So now you have guys up front and you have bodies. Now you got to go get those guys. Warhop's got to do his job. And so they got the playmaker. So the two positions of need, without question, they've addressed.
Do you expect can the defense get better? Well, how does the defense get better?
I think it's really, really easy. First and foremost, it's some of the key guys are a year older. So now you have Mason Graham, who's been in the weight room all year. He's going to be a year older. Malik Collins will hopefully come back. I think he's outstanding. I hope he still plays at that level. He's playing at an all-pro level. Alex Wright is only going to get better. Isaiah McGuire is only going to get better. Those are two guys they took a chance on with Trace are through the roof. Alex Wright can bump down to that 3 technique, and you can get a really good pass rush. Carson Schlesinger, Rookie of the Year, only going to get better. I thought Devin Bush was absolutely outstanding last year. I think Quincy Williams is an upgrade. So, and I really mean that. Now, you get Emerson back. Who knows what's going to go with Emerson? Tyson, that was another guy at camp the other day. I really didn't get to see Tyson too much because we don't get out there too much when the season starts. Absolutely stunned on how big Tyson is. Big physical kid. So now you have two outstanding corners. I think Ronnie Hickman played really well last year. So getting a year older now. The only thing would hold him back maybe early just because it's a new scheme, but it's not totally new. Right. There are a lot of man coverage, pressure fronts, one gap penetration, clean stuff up as linebackers. Yeah, I think some of their key players are older. Everybody's, they know they have to be good. They've addressed the offense. I don't think people think I'm crazy, and people are, I'm always optimistic. I think they're doing good things, and I think they're not nearly as far away. They just got to go do it. But there's talent on this team. It's not the 1 in 31 Browns, right? There's talent on this team. They just got to close the gap, and hopefully they can do that.
So after being out there, do you think they draft a developmental quarterback? I don't think it's coming day 2. Day 3?
I say no. I don't think there's a guy seeing two things. The other day, first of all, I'm not saying he's the quarterback. Deshaun Watson looks healthy. Whatever that means, I understand what everybody has said in the past. That doesn't mean anything to Todd Monkin. Todd Monkin's looking for the best players. And I'm not talking about what he did in 2020. I'm not going back to any of those things. I just thought he looked healthy. And the ball jumps off his, you can tell, I say this all the time, but when there's an all-pro quarterback, the ball looks different coming out of their hand. Now, it doesn't mean he's played poorly, but the ball looks different coming out of Deshaun Watson's hand. And I also think you drafted Shedeur Sanders and you drafted Dylan Gabriel. So you have 2 projects that you're really working on. I think you've addressed this offensive line. You're not bringing in a guy that's not going to be a developmental guy. You already have 2 of those guys. So Watson showed me that even if you want him as the backup, that's your veteran backup. You have 2 kids that I think can do it. I think Shedeur has shown that at least can get a shot. Get him some weapons, see if it can happen. But no, I think there's so many weaknesses, still depth weaknesses. I don't think you can waste any of these picks. I think you've got to go get picks and bring in talent and create some competition.
All right, let's recap the first round as it has come to a close. Jarian Price goes to the Seahawks. So Mendoza, Bailey, Love, Tate, Arvell, Reese goes 5 to the Giants. Delane to the Chiefs, who traded up with the Browns. Browns trade back 3. Styles, Jordan Tyson to the Saints. Browns get Fano at 9. Downs goes to the Cowboys at 11. Simpson to the Rams at 13. Sadiq to the Jets at 16. And then at 17, it's Blake Miller from Strongsville going to the Lions. Freeling goes to the Panthers. Mekhi Lemon lasts until 20. He goes to the Eagles. The Browns come back at 24 and get Casey Concepcion. At 25, it's Thielman to the Bears. Rutledge, the guard, goes to the Texans. Chris Johnson to the Dolphins. Lomu goes to the Patriots. Woods to the Chiefs. Cooper to the Jets. Falk and Price rounded out. So Lance, final thoughts on the 2 guys that the Browns got?
I think they did a really nice job addressing their needs, getting high level. I think once again, trading down. If they were really targeting Fano and they were able to trade down and get that extra 3rd pick, I think that's really important. Now, in day 2, you have some capital, right? So if you want to go up and get a guy that you really like, if you like Boston, if you like some of these guys, there's still some really high-level, impactful guys in this draft at multiple positions that they need depth at. They need competition. Ronnie Hickman is outstanding. He's also the only free. He's also the only true 1 high hat they have. And he plays down in the box, and he's physical. They need to address that safety position. There's some good safeties out there. They need to go get, if you ask me the number 1 need right now, they need to go get a tight end because they have Fannin, but then they have Stoll, they have Whiteheart, and they have Bates. Those guys are all hand-on-the-ground guys. In this offense, they need another skill. They need Oscar Delp, Joe Royer, Eli Stein. They got to go get an explosive tight end at some point here the next day.
All right, and we will be back here for rounds 2 and 3 tomorrow. Starts an hour earlier at 7 o'clock. For Lance Reisland, I'm Dave Bacon. We'll see you again tomorrow night with the Sports4CLE Draft Special rounds 2 and 3. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow.